meeting been posted, Dr. Kiltz?
It has.
And roll call will show that all 5 board members are present, as well as our 2 student representatives. So at this time, I invite you to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Any communications to share this evening, Dr. Kiltz?
Yes, we have some good news to share with the board and community. First of all, we had about 30 parents attend the previous Parents as Partners session on date safety. The session provided parents with insight on what students learned during the day and some helpful tools and conversation starters to use with their children on safe dating and protecting themselves from sexual assault. Thanks to the Greendale Education Foundation for the grant that supported the speaker for the district and for the community. Highland View is presenting the Panther Pride Moment tonight, so I appreciate their attendance here. Look forward to hearing their update on the great work being done at their school, so thank you. We also have an update on the equity plan. This serves as an opportunity to share out key professional development, student leadership, and plan community workshops and sessions that are planned. Appreciate the community partners, students who are here tonight to share out the great work, conversations that are occurring. So thanks to those who are here for that. Fiber optics project for Greendale is being completed beginning this month. In cooperation with Franklin, the installation of the fiber cable to Alvernal is tentatively scheduled to start Monday, April 15th. It will be installed, spliced, and tested by May 23rd. So we're excited that that project is finally moving forward. A community wellness fair will take place Tuesday, April 9th at the high school from 5:45 to 7 p.m., followed by a panel discussion on mental health and growing resilience in our youth. So we invite the community to come to that wonderful event. Commendations are being presented tonight to retiring board members Tom Slota and Melanie Kuzmanovich for their many years of service to the school board. I thank them for their advocacy of and involvement in public education, and certainly thank all the people, organizations that are here tonight to help us commemorate their service on our school board. The middle school will host a digital citizenship parent night on Tuesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. in the library, with a focus on how parents can be proactive with students on the use of social media. An all-district orchestra concert will be held on April 17th at 7 p.m. in the high school gym. District Jazz Band concert will take place at the high school on April 24th at 7 p.m. And finally, the following donations were received by the district for the theater department: $200 from Jackie and Harvey Schweitzer and $250 from Jane and Sean Mlinar. So we thank them for their donations to the theater department.
Thank you, Dr. Kiltz. At this time, we've got some commendations that we'd like to recognize. So as Dr. Kiltz mentioned, Melanie Kuzmanovich and Tom Slota are both retiring after very successful careers here on the board, so we will wish them well. And at this time, I'd like to invite John Ashley and Dr. Mary Gavigan to our podium from the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, as well as the local CISA, to recognize our retiring board members.
Good evening. Could I also invite the president of the WSB Board of Directors?
Yes, please.
To join me? Brett Hyde.
Sorry about that, Brett.
Skigel, Norway. These things are very bittersweet, but in this particular case, extremely so. This is a district that I've been familiar with for many, many years. There's always been an emphasis on education. This board should be applauded for its focus on the achievement of the students in this district. And so tonight, it is my distinct pleasure to present to Dr. Thomas Slota in recognition of your service to the children in Wisconsin Public Schools for 32 years. Now let me stop. Some of you in here aren't even 32. Nothing against Tom, but that's a long time. That is 3 decades plus of service. And I rarely have, and is that one of yours? They're excited.
We're all excited for you, Dr. Slota.
This guy is talking too much. But Dr. Tom, we know how much you have meant to this district and to the students in this district. And so this plaque is a small token of appreciation for the efforts that you've made on behalf of the school district of Greendale, but also the staff and this community. It goes without saying that he loves kids. And I want to thank his family. Where's the family? I know that they're in here. Thank you for loaning this. Some of you probably didn't mind that he was here, but we know that it was your generosity in allowing him to serve for 32 years that has allowed this district to prosper. So Dr. Tom, if you'd come up, I'd like to present this to you. Now, do you want a few words? Or because we also don't want to ignore that we have another retiring board member, and that is Melanie Kuzmanovic. Yep. I got it.
Yes.
But 7 years of service, that's also something that has to be recognized by this community, because again, her family loaned her to you to make sure that the business of this district would be focused on students. And that is something that you've done, and I want to thank you publicly on behalf of the WSB CISA 1 for your service.
Stand up.
Now, Dr. Tom, 32 years, distilled all the wisdom. Go for it.
3 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 minutes.
You don't know me very well. There's an old saying that the most valuable thing to a citizen of the United States is their vote. And for 32 years, the people of Greendale have given me their vote. And it's the highest thing they can entrust me with. And I have always tried to live up to that, make myself worthy and justify their trust in me. I think everybody has a chance to do this kind of thing because one of the greatest things I think our district has ever done is emphasize service learning. And this is what serving on a board is, but there are so many other things. Everybody in the room can participate in their community, and I highly advise that you find some way. Children's athletics, boards, get involved with the schools. Anyway, everyone can do that, to get involved with their community. This is how I chose to do it, but, you know, please do. We emphasize it here, and I think for a very good reason. As far as people to thank, it's everyone that I can imagine. One of the thing that makes the school board look good is the schools, and the schools look good because I think in Greendale we have wisely made sure that the right people were in the positions of power and then let them do their professional work. We've brought in, retained, developed the best people, I think, teachers, administrators, starting with superintendent and going on down. I think we've done an excellent job of that. We know what the school board in Greendale, I think, always knew what to do, and we did it, and we let the professionals be their professionals. I think that's one of the reasons why we've done so well here. So I'd like to thank all those people. Other people here, my family that I did not expect to be here. We were at the Brewer game yesterday together, but I didn't think they'd show up here. That's very nice. Very nice. Sandy, where's Sandy? There you go, Sandy. Thank you so much. Put up with a lot, knows probably as much about the school board as I do because I would complain about things after each meeting. Finally, the board members I've served with. I've served with a lot of people, and the board now and the board coming on, by the way, are just the best people we can possibly imagine for this district. I've worked with everybody for the last 32 years, all these board members, and they've all been good. They've all had things to add to the equation. Also, by the way, they come from the whole spectrum of right to left and center. And what happens when they've come on the Greendale schools is they've dropped the ideology and worked for students. I think that when the people who wrote the state constitution did so, one of the wisest things they ever did was make schools a nonpartisan office. Because you come here and you're not a Democrat or Republican, you're not even a liberal or conservative, you come here and you're here to help kids. Another good reason why we've succeeded. So I've enjoyed the 32 years on the board so much. I get to see, instead of every other Monday night football game, every football game. For 32 years, I have missed the 4th of July parade and the Village Parade because I've been in them. Now I get to actually watch them. So I'm looking forward to a lot of other things. I'm certainly going to stay involved in the community in many different ways as much as I can. But thank you all for making Greendale great, and thank you all for being here tonight.
First, I'd like to add that I don't know who Slota's kidding. He's looking forward to watching The Bachelor on Monday nights. Football. I echo everything Tom says. I mean, he really summed it up beautifully. I spent some time in a school in Kenya for a while, and they have wonderful pillars, this girls' school. And I left so touched by what these young women were trying to accomplish. But one of the pillars that I think stands true, I mean many of them, to Greendale, is leave a place better than you found it. And I'm hoping in these last 7 years that I'm actually leaving a great school even better. And there were some really tough things that we had to deal with and still are dealing with, because schools are a microcosm of society, and being such, society's problems infiltrate our schools, and society's celebrations are in our schools. And we've got some things to tackle here in Greendale, without a doubt. But we've done some wonderful things here, and especially in the last 7 years. And one of the things I can say I'm really proud of is not just our students' successes and passing a referendum and those kinds of things, but I couldn't be prouder that while I was on this board during my tenure, that we became several times over, I think 3 times, a best workplace, identified as a best workplace. And that, as an educator myself, not too many schools can say that. And the fact that we are a district of destination for teachers, and we are considered a top workplace, you know that is a direct parallel for our student successes, and that infiltrates our classrooms. And so that's something I hope I left the place a little bit better. I hope our teachers know that we were a teacher-friendly board, and it reflected in our decisions and our policies and all of that. So so there's so many things to be happy about. I am looking forward to some new adventures. I will always be in Greendale. I will always be pestering a lot of committees and trying to make it a better place. So I'm not gone. I'm just doing something different now. So thank you, everyone. It's been fun.
We are going to continue to commend you, so you can join us back here. You can stay there. At this time, I'm going to invite Village President Jim Birmingham, and I think there's a couple of village trustees as well as the village manager, if you want to join him at the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Tom had 10 years on me before I got even started in the village. So he had 10 years well into the school board when we started. So we are happy to that Tom was on the school board and doing what he's doing. So we have a proclamation. We actually have a day for Tom, as we do in the village, and doesn't mean a lot except almost the end. It's almost the end of that day, but it does mean a lot to us as people in Greendale. So let me read this a little bit, because you're going to learn a few things that you probably didn't know. But so this is a proclamation here, April 8th, 2019, as Tom Slota Day in the village of Greendale. Whereas Tom served on the school board 32 years and held various board positions. So listen to these. He was the school president, vice president, clerk, treasurer, medical advisor, board legislative liaison, board policy committee member, WASB delegate, Village Board Liaison, CESA number 1 delegate, and MATC representative. So all those things in your 32 years. Whereas Tom was elected to the school board 12 times on 1 and 3 year various terms. Since Tom Slota has been with the school board, there has been 6 superintendents that have served 17 individual board members, and 6,000 students have graduated from the school. 6,000. So it's to you. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the entire board commends and congratulates Tom Slota on his many years of service to the village of Greendale. Be it further proclaimed, I, Jim Birmingham, village president, proclaim April 8th, 2019, as Tom Slota Day in the village of Greendale, as a recognition and appreciation of his dedication to the village of Greendale, dated March 19th, 2019. So congratulations.
Does this mean I can speed now?
Yeah. Today.
Just today.
All right, thank you to the village board. At this time, we also have State Representative Ken Skoronsky and State Senator David Craig, who are here this evening.
Pulling rank on me.
It's a pleasure being here, and the state of Wisconsin is very honored to have a dedicated person such as Tom to the school board and education of this community. Greendale has a very high standard, and you always meet it. And with the board and the students, the staff, faculty, we are so proud that you're here. Unfortunately, you're leaving. Now you can watch your Monday night football games, and you can be in the parade, and you walk your legs off and have a good time, and we're so proud of that. But for Senator Craig and myself, we're very honored to be here to present the plaque to you, and we'll kind of make it short because I know there's many people here and you want to get at the rest of that cake and everything. Whereas Dr. Tom Slota has served 32 years in Greendale Board of Education, and whereas Dr. Slota was elected to serve the people of Greendale to 12 different terms, whereas the doctor has tenured the Greendale Board of Education, oversaw the stewardship of 6 different superintendents. I bet that was a chore, wasn't it? But kept them in line. Yeah. And the doctor has leadership with Greendale Board of Education successfully led the graduation of 6,000 students. Boy, that's a family, I tell you, to do that. That's great. And the doctor has worked with 17 other board members over his 32 years of service now. And that's great when you get a team together like that and work and have success. That's leadership. So whereas Dr. Slota has held the board position of president, vice president, clerk, treasurer, medical advisor, board legislative liaison, board committee member, WASB delegate, village board liaison, CISA 1 delegate, and MATC representative. Did I miss something? No, okay. I got them all. Thank you. Therefore, the members of the Wisconsin State Senate, represented by Senator Gregg, and a motion by Senator Gregg, and myself as a representative of the Assembly, we commend Dr. Slota on the occasion of 32 years of service the Greendale Board of Education. Congratulations. We got to get a picture. Get in a minute. There we go.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Could I just say one quick?
Please.
And I guess it's probably a little bit redundant tonight. To Melanie, to Dr. Slota, our state thrives on the fuel that is citizen servants. So thank you both, thank you all for doing what you do, for taking the arrows, the barbs that come with elective office. It is a hard grind, particularly for loved ones. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for having the tenacity to do this for decades. And we look forward to more work from you, Melanie, in your next endeavor. So thank you so much again.
And we as a school board also have a commendation that we'd like to share with you, and it's just a small token of our appreciation. So Melanie, we've heard that you served on the board for 7 years. That only tells part of your story. I want to thank you for all that you've done over the past 7 years, and even beyond that. When you think back, being part of the Canterbury PTO, having 3 children graduate from these schools, being a school counselor in a neighboring district, you have been such a strong advocate for public education. And whether you were a parent or a board member, you are integral to why public education works in places like Greendale. Strong community commitment, strong community support. So I thank you for that service. It's been an honor to serve with you for these past 7 years. And I look forward to just seeing what you do going forward. So thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's very touching.
Now it's your turn for a photo.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to scooch over just a little bit so you want something? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, look at me.
And Dr. Slota, thank you for being such a strong advocate of public education. In case anyone didn't do the math, 32 years takes us back to 1987. I could read all the committee assignments and the roles that you've had, but I think what's important is you have been an active and a vibrant member of this community and this school board for over 30 years. You've been a mentor to me and many other board members along the way, guiding us into the future, but making sure that we were grounded in the past. So I want to thank you for that. I know it's exciting to see your family come out and congratulate you. They have, like was said, they've been supporting you all these years. We get to see you every Monday night. So thank you for sharing your father with us. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, you have been a strong advocate for public education here in Greendale, for all that is being, everything that goes well here. So thank you for your time, and we will miss you.
So many plaques, I'm going to have to move to a different house.
Yeah, I'd like to, Melanie, and then the rest of the board, and any past or future board members that are here tonight. How about we take a picture with the two that are retired?
Wonderful. Still here?
Past and future.
I'm going to put John in the back row next to Dr. Kiltz. I'm going to have Melanie, Judy, and Noelle and Tom come forward.
Oh, the short one in the front.
Sorry. Actually, I'm going to bring Judy over to your side.
69 years.
2, 3, look at me. 1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 32. Yeah, I get to work.
But one more round of applause for our board members. So this is the last official board meeting. We thank you for your many years of service. All right, at this time, we will continue with our agenda and take any comments from visitors this evening. So persons wishing to address the board are asked to come to the podium and state their name and record for their name and address for the record, and limit comments to 1 time, as well as 3 minutes or 5 minutes if speaking for a group. Citizen comments shall be limited to a total period not to exceed 30 minutes. So I invite anyone that has a comment to come to the podium. And again, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Mary Glass. I'm the chair, CEO, and CVO of Milwaukee Professionals Association. And I'm the executive director, host of Public Policies with Mary Glass, River West Radio, Milwaukee. Congratulations to the new members of the board, as well as the retiring board members. I am here to introduce myself, the public policy organization I represent, a very serious issue, racial disorder, racial slurs. I am here to introduce and support the petition, Tell Greendale, Wisconsin School Board, Shanice Knox, Deanna Meredith, all Greendale students and parents need their help through transparency, accountability, health, and wellness now. We will deliver to this board, the new board, we had first thought of tonight, but knowing that there was a new board, I have decided to submit the tally that we have next meeting, and the petition will run until then. This petition, by the way, started March 29th, 2019, and as of now, or as of my last checking, we had 496 signers. I suggest you read that. Those of you, I've heard some very wonderful things coming from those of you who are representing everyone. I suggest you read that. You have people that have gone to school here, parents, and you have taxpayers making comments. You will hear more as the weeks go by through press releases, press conferences, articles, contacts to you, and as a planned forum with DPI. Today's visit was to say it's about business. We're not the enemy, but we're serious. It must stop. As you know, it's happening to many of the schools. I thank you, and again, congratulations to those who have put forward services, and I hope you continue. Please help with racial slurs.
Thank you, and hopefully you'll be able to stay this evening. There will be an update on our equity plan that we'll be getting this evening, so you can hear a little bit more about what's happening.
Deanna Marriott. Whitefish Bay was just on the news because they had white kids asking black kids for the N-word pass. The school disciplined the students, sent out a letter immediately. They did not wait for students or parents to complain. They saw the issue and addressed it. Oak Creek had an issue recently where a black student was threatened. You probably didn't hear about that because the school called the police and the situation was handled. The media wasn't called because the family felt the school handled the situation appropriately. Franklin had a racial incident where a white student put colored signs on front of the drinking fountain. The school at least admitted it happened. This year I heard they had a very successful Black History celebration. Greendale School suspends my daughter for being called the N-word. When I tried to work with the district, they called my daughter a liar. They denied the event happened. Once media was called, Dr. Kiltz again denied it. When more students came forward, the district hired Dr. Moultrie and Dr. Smith. 7 months later, what has happened in the district? The students will have a buddy club and a culture night. Our elementary school has a culture night put together by one teacher. How does a buddy with freshmen deal with race? How does eating Mexican rice allow me to know a person of Mexican descent? We have also, since the hiring of Dr. Moultrie and Dr. Smith, had racial graffiti written in the boys' bathroom, 2 racist videos, the N-word thrown around the school halls almost daily. We have a workshop in April that no one can attend, and even if they want to, it is by invite only. If you can't admit that there is a problem, how can you change it? I am positive under the current administration nothing will change. I am asking the community to stand for what is right. We cannot allow another student to be mistreated. There is a race problem in this district, and it will not go away because someone says it's fake news. In the end, Greendale School Board would not be remembered by their words, but by their lack of action. As for the community, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it.
And as you are aware, Ms. Merritt, we do not discuss student discipline issues. I will correct a couple of things for the record. That,
We don't need you to correct.
excuse me, we are not interrupting this meeting. We are taking action, and we do not take issues like this lightly. You will hear later about some of the plans that are happening as part of our equity plan that involves more than just eating Mexican rice.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kendall Curtis. I live at 5316 Olympia Lane in Greendale, Wisconsin. I'm here because I'm just like everybody else here. I'm a neighbor. I'm the one that you would see walking down the street or anything else. You would never know me unless you actually met me in person. I'm here because of all the media coverage and everything that's happened with the individuals with the racial slurs and things that are going on and everything else like that. I myself, I've been across the country. I've had I've been in business for 35 years. I've had about 58 businesses across the country, from state to state, from Atlanta to New York to Chicago to Wisconsin, everything else. And here at Greendale, when I got here, I actually purchased a home here. And when I got here, I felt very uneasy. Do I belong here? Is this the right place for me? I don't know. And now, from what I'm seeing in the media, from the racial slurs and things like that, I'm wondering, are our students being treated the same way? When there are students in our schools, are they being made to feel uneasy? Am I in the right place? Should I be here? Should I be in this school, or whatever the situation may be? I heard a lot of individuals speak in regards to the percentage of people graduating and things like that from Greendale schools, and that's a great thing because we want people to graduate. There's no question about it. However, we never talked about the attendance rates. Are the attendance rates equal of minorities as they are to majorities, or is it lopsided? Is it way more majority than there is minorities? And when you look at those statistics there, and then you start to really look at the graduation percentage of minorities, I don't know that it would be equal. I don't know if it would be the same. But I just wanted to speak out just because I'm a neighbor just like everybody else here in Greendale. You'd never know me from the start. But however, I think we need to start tracking what's happening in our schools. I think we need to start tracking and asking questions of parents of their kids before they attend our school, because we're just allowing folks to come to our schools and we don't know they come from a racial background. Have they been involved in racial clubs or things like that, or what have they been involved in, or are we just allowing them in for attendance reasons and things like that? And again, my name is Kendall Curtis. My son's already graduated college and everything else, but I have a daughter that will soon go to Greendale schools. And as she stated before, the racial slurs, they have to stop, and they have to stop right here and right now. Right now, as it stands right now, it seems to be one-sided. although it could be two sides, but what's being reported is it's all one-sided toward the minorities. And that's something that I definitely would like to see stopped. I've been here for about 7 years now. I have never spoke out about anything else, but when we see this, this is when I have to stop, and this is when we have to speak out and say, hey, look, enough is enough. We're not going to tolerate this because I pay taxes just like everyone else in Greendale. So if we're paying taxes, I don't want to contribute to something that's involved in racial slurs and racial things like that. We've got a great record with Greendale schools, and that's super. That's just great. Can't wait for my daughter actually to attend Greendale High School. But by the time she gets here, I'd like all this to be stopped, and that's my time, and I'll yield back. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your feedback. I want to make sure that you're aware that we are hosting a community discussion on Tuesday, May 7th, from 6:30 to 8:30 here at the high school in the library here. So I invite you back to attend that because, like you said, we're bringing the community together so that neighbors can talk with neighbors and share their feedback. So please come back at that time.
Good evening. My name is Linda Larson. I live at 5586 Municipal Square. Congratulations to Mel and to Tom, and thank you for your service. Greendale is a special community. They have excellent schools. My kids both graduated from here. I'm not from Greendale, but I have found a lot of special opportunities across the years that I've been here. Also, I'd like to special thanks to Dr. Kilt and Brian. I think Brian is still here. They are going to be adding on to some of the schools due to the demand for more classrooms. And at College Park, I lost my niece 25 years ago, and the school district graciously planted a tree, not only for my niece, but many other students that have passed away in the district. So I appreciate that. Unfortunately, it's going to have to come down for the new classrooms, but they're going to replace it with 2 new trees. And we're going to save the tree trunk and make a bench so that my sister can take that home with her to Florida. But I just wanted to, I'm a little bit nervous because there's a little bit of negativity going on tonight, and I don't know what side anyone is on. All I can go by my own experience. Excuse me?
Please let's respect all speakers. Ms. Larson, please address the board, and I'd ask for the audience to give the respect to everyone that was given to previous speakers.
So I just wanted to give a thanks for that, but I just hope that this can be resolved shortly. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, and we will continue to work with you and your family regarding the tree that was planted there, so thank you. It was a great recognition, so thank you. Any other speakers this evening? And again, state your name and address for the record, please.
Karen Birmingham, 5711 Carnation Court, Greendale. I just want to say thank you to Tom and Mel for your years of service, and excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. I have 3 kids that have graduated, and the last one just this past year. Tom's been there for all of them, and I'm very, very proud to say that my kids have gone here and went through the school district, through different superintendents all the way down to board members. Mel and I popped popcorn together at Canterbury when our kids were young, and I have a lot of great memories with a lot of the school board members and more to come. And again, Tom and Mel, thank you so much, and we hope to see you around the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from visitors?
Hi, my name is Heather Godley, and my address is 5331 Millbank Road in Greendale. Today, however, I'm not here as an individual, but rather as a representative of a brand new group called PAGE, which stands for Parents Advocating for Greendale Equity. We are a diverse group of Greendale community members and parents with children in Greendale elementary, middle, and high schools. We want you to know that we are concerned both about our kids and others. We have seen that racism is a systemic problem in Greendale schools. In addition to the personal experiences many of us have had with our own children, over the past months, members of our group have had many current students and recent alumni share their experiences of racism in all levels of Greendale schools. Many times we've heard alumni and parents say that their experience was that the school did nothing. They feel that administrators have consistently ignored parents' and kids' statements that they do not feel supported. Denying that racism is a problem in our own school district will not help us fix the problem. We are asking that the district acknowledge that there's a problem and work in a dedicated and authentic way to listen to affected parents and students and to develop a plan to address these issues and change the culture in Greendale to create an environment that is safe and positive for children in Greendale schools. Page's mission is to represent and amplify the voices of those students, parents, and community members who are not adequately heard or respected in Greendale, especially in public schools, to help Greendale School District and the community at large to embrace its growing diversity, to become more aware of the systemic racism in its past and present, and to become a more welcoming community for all as an urgent priority. We need to be able to trust that the schools are protecting and supporting our kids and all kids. This will entail real, honest self-reflection on the part of school leaders and require that administration show ongoing commitment to reevaluating how they deal with issues of racism and bullying. We know that sometimes kids make mistakes. Our concern is with how the schools handle it. We are asking that the district proactively evaluate its policies and procedures to ensure that we are not just welcoming of diversity, but will also revise both policies and procedures to ensure that they are both actively anti-racist. We need validation and assurance that when racist incidents happen, staff, administration, and all adults within the district will respond swiftly and appropriately according to those policies and procedures. We need the confidence that these policies and procedures spell out clear expectations and consequences, and that the administration will follow through and enforce those expectations with strong consequences in cases where racism or bullying is perpetrated. It's the district's job to lead by example and establish a culture where there are clear expectations for behavior. It's the district's job to provide all staff and students with the tools to be anti-racist. Appropriately addressing safety issues or racism as well as reporting racism and safety issues should be a top priority. It is only when every adult in Greendale schools, from the superintendent through administrators to every teacher, substitute, and volunteer, is trained by experts in anti-racist responses and committed to acting on them, that we will be able to change the culture. The district should also ensure that every student knows that racism and bullying will not be tolerated, and that every student will not only know that they are expected to stand up to such incidents, but also that they will be heard and supported when they report them. Our village was founded over 80 years ago as a deliberately whites-only community, despite Eleanor Roosevelt's request that it be inclusive. And despite the fact that legal segregation is no longer permitted, we are still living with the demographic and cultural impact of our founding. Our schools must be the agents of changing this past and leading us forward into a more diverse and inclusive future. Greendale is wonderful in so many ways, but we also know that people fear making waves or drawing attention to areas where we are not excelling. We know that it's embarrassing for the district to have racist incidents be reported in the media, and that talking about race often makes people uncomfortable. It's also often hard for those of us who have not personally experienced racism to see its pervasiveness. We love the band, we love the academic excellence, the opportunities for dual credit and service learning in the small town feel of Greendale. But we deserve to know that every student is being supported. We can't do this by just hoping that the issues will go away. We need to be committed to actively creating change on a continual basis this year and every year. And it is necessary that together we all, parents, students, administration, and community members, work together to turn over a new page in Greendale that will help us support students, all students, and ensure that every student has the safe, welcoming, and supportive school experience that they deserve. Thank you.
Judy Fon, 7062 Darnell Lane. I just want to say thank you, Mel and Tom. Tom, you and I go back a little bit further, and we know what being a board member means. And I think at this point in time, everyone sitting here has absolutely no idea what a board member goes through. You come to the meeting and you work, as you will be tonight. But it's the time in between that you spend a lot of time thinking of the community, thinking of the children, and thinking of the work that you do here on Monday nights. And I have to say right at this point, we've had our ups and we've had our downs over the last 30-some years. And at this time, we've always come away doing the right thing. And I truly feel we have a great community, a great school system, and you as a board. I have great confidence in you and the new board members who are coming in that you will also do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Jackson. I live at 6743 Hill Park Court in Greendale. I think I just want to start, I don't think any of this is sides. At least I'm hoping. I think it's going to take all of us, obviously to work together. So unfortunately, I just don't like that sense that people feel it's sides, because I don't think anybody's meaning to do that. I really don't. Greendale has been receiving a lot of bad press lately, and I know that these bad marks on a district that historically has been praised and should be praised for many things, it's not well received by stakeholders in our district. What I know is the district can continue to receive bad press by handling these issues that are present in a way that tries to quiet or make people think that the district is doing something. Or the district can start to hear press that praises them for acknowledging their faults and taking immediate and effective action to deal with the racism that is obviously present in Greendale schools. I think it's a lot bigger than we're even discussing. I have a daughter that we came to Greendale specifically for the high school, actually, when she was going into her freshman year. She is biracial. She's mixed race. So her skin is dark, and, she looks different. She's never experienced racism until she came here. I was really excited about the high school, about the education she would get. But she's been struggling. She's a junior now and continues to struggle. And I know that there's a lot that goes on that doesn't get reported. So I just don't want you to concentrate on the stuff we've seen. It's bigger than we even know. I know there's a lot of kids that don't report. My daughter was one of them. So I just don't think they feel like they have the confidence enough to tell sometimes. Where was I? So, the district, I just believe they need to handle the issues of racism and view these issues with great magnitude and understand the time and effort it will need to take to improve acceptance and equality for all students, or equity for all students that attend Greendale School District. I know it's going to take more than a minute, a day, or a couple meetings. This is going to be a while, and I think a lot of planning has to go into this, and a lot of discussions, some uncomfortable discussions. I mean, talking about race is uncomfortable, but it really needs to happen, and we really need to do something about it. I only have 30 seconds. Okay. Probably can't finish this then, but I think I got out what I needed to say. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and hopefully you'll hear, and if you can stick around, you will hear from the students and some of the work that they've been doing. As you said, this is not something that's going to be a one-time event or solved in a single meeting. So you'll hear from the students and what they've done, what they've planned on doing. And again, I invite you to the community conversation that we'll be having on Tuesday, May 7th at 6:30 here at the Greendale High School Library. Thank you. Any other visitors?
Shanice Knox, Greendale. I want to talk about the environment in Greendale High School. It's very difficult walking into a school, not seeing many people that look like you, being judged because you look differently, seeing teachers that don't look like you, share any common interests with you, administration, school board who don't look like you. I have been told by administration that when the N-word is said, to walk away and ignore it. How can you walk away and go to class hearing that word and be totally fine and ignore it like it's never been said? I was denied a Black Student Alliance for a long time until they got an email from my mom, and all of a sudden they can make the group happen. I have been told I'm not going to be arrested this time because I stood up for myself when a girl had called me the N-word. I'm just struggling to the fact of the ignorance in this room. I just don't know what it will take for you to just simply listen and take action. I'm just to the point to where you don't want to, which I would just like you just to send an email out and say you don't want to, because we're wasting our time coming here, speaking, telling you to take action, and you won't do it. I'm sick of it. I'm here every single day. I hear the N-word every single day. And I'm tired of going to report it because nothing will be done. I don't know what else I have to do to get you to get it together. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments this evening? All right, seeing none, we will continue with our agenda. And as I mentioned, I hope people can stick around and hear an update on the equity plan because there are things that are being done in this community, and you'll hear some information. So next on the agenda, personnel. There is an approval of a Canterbury Elementary principal appointment, teacher resignations, and support staff retirement request. So is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the Canterbury Elementary School appointment, teacher resignations, and support staff retirement requests as outlined in Agenda Item 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve Agenda Item 5, personnel. Any further discussion? And I call for a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I am yes, motion carries. And we'd like to thank Miss Jeannie Lovis for her years of service at Highland View Elementary. And we'd like to congratulate Miss Sarah Derrick for her appointment at Canterbury Elementary. And thank you for your years of service at the high school. I think this promotion is recognition of the good work that you've done here at the high school. So thank you very much. Then moving on to Agenda Item 6, the regular meeting minutes.
I move we approve the regular meeting minutes from March 18th, 2019, as outlined in Agenda Item 6.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 18th, 2019. Any further discussion? Then I call for a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I'm yes, motion carries. Continuing on to Agenda Item 7, approval of policies. So there are a number of policies that are being presented now for a second reading. We reviewed some of these at our last board meeting and made some changes. So any questions or discussion? Anything from administration that you want to highlight?
Just for clarification, I do not believe there were any recommended changes from what we presented at the last meeting.
All right. So is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve Agenda Item 7, files number 342, Programs for Students with Disabilities, 342.8, Section 504, Plans and Services, 342.8, Pupil Non-Discrimination Rights under Section 504, File 342.8, Rule, Pupil Non-Discrimination Rights Procedure, 362.1, Interlibrary Loan, 431, Attendance and Excuses, 443.3, Student Use of Electronic Devices, 443.5, student use of and possession of electronic communication devices.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve policies outlined in Agenda Item number 7. Any further discussion? Then I call for a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I am yes, motion carries. Next on the agenda, we're here to hear we are here tonight to hear a Panther Pride update, and Miss Tracy Slater and some of the staff from Highland View are here this evening.
So Ms. Flater, if you want to come on up to the table with your team and you can do some introductions. Do we have a PowerPoint as well that you're putting up? Oh, it's not cooperating? So we'll go ahead and have you go ahead and get started. Well, Nate will continue to work on it. We also, do we have it on your computers? So
We
you
do
can-
not.
Okay. Which itself off.
Well, it's really great.
I am sure it is.
There you go.
Nate's a magic man, so I'm sure he'll get it up and working for
He's
us.
going to get a step ladder and
I can share it with you right now.
It's turning on.
It is
It's-
turning on.
it's
Okay, good.
So we'll just sing.
Do you want to introduce yourselves? Just make
Yes.
sure that everyone...
Good idea. So we are here tonight to present some of the work we've been doing in our building this year around inclusive practices through a co-serving, co-teaching model in our building. So here with us, I'm Tracy Flater, principal of Highland View.
Kimberly Whiteglint, 4th grade at Highland View.
Amy Stoll, 3rd grade at Highland View. Erin Chantel, 3rd grade and special education at Highland View.
Denise Burnett, early childhood teacher at Highland View.
And also helping with the presentation, but she was not able to be here tonight, is Carrie Gleasing, who is a 4th grade special education teacher and co-teaching with Mrs. Whiteglint this year. All right, so co-serving is when a group of educators, and we say educators, we're talking about regular educators, special educators, math and reading specialists, therapists, our English language teacher, all working together so that they share equal responsibility for the planning and delivery of instruction for all of our students. The classroom setting includes children that are typically developing and students with special needs. Excuse me. So at Highland View, logistically, we have 5 classrooms that are currently in a co-serving model. So we have 2 of our 4K classrooms working with Mrs. Burnett, and we have 1 3rd grade classroom, which is Mrs. Stoll and Mrs. Chantel, and we have 2 4th grade classrooms, so Mrs. Whiteglint and Mrs. Gleasing, and then we have Mr. Rivera and Ms. Truzinski, who could not be here tonight. So 5 classrooms currently. We've done a lot of different professional learning and support around the co-serving model. We started back in summer reading a book, From Disability to Possibility, The Power of Inclusive Classrooms. And we worked through that book and with our co-serving consultant, Mrs. Peggy Black. And she is with us, I'd say about every other month. She comes and works with us and is in the classrooms, visiting the students, talking with the teachers, helping support them as they plan for specially designed instruction for students, as well as working on their relationships as co-teachers together. And along with the summer book study and our co-serving consultant, there is a lot of collaboration that happens on an hourly basis in order to be successful in the classroom and have the partnership work together. Another thing that we've done differently this year in our co-serving classrooms is the scheduling of our paraprofessionals. It's been very consistent and purposeful. So we've really worked at scheduling paras to be in classrooms for consecutive hours each day, which provides further opportunities for the building of positive relationships with trusted adults. It allows for increased communication between adults around student successes and needs, and it's another perspective to support students and the needs that they have. One of the most important pieces of our co-serving model, though, is that it's value added. It's not really about the teacher being next to the student, but the systems that are put into place. The presence of the co-teachers in the classroom really gives students the opportunity to actually be less teacher dependent than they would be if they were being pulled out of the classroom for their learning.
So co-serving is, we really want you to understand, it's more than just extra hands or an extra body in the classroom. It's strategic, it's thoughtful, it's purposeful planning around student academic needs as well as student social emotional needs.
So I'm going to share a little bit about what's happening in 4K. I'm not sure where to exactly put this. All right. So I have taught with Amy Bushman and Kelly Recklitz the last 3 years, and we've had the opportunity to build rapport with one another, and we've all grown professionally. And what I mean by that is that as a special education teacher, my job is oftentimes to deal with behavior first and take care of that. And our regular ed teachers, their job is to teach the entire class. But now we've been able to switch those roles, and there's times that I'm teaching the entire class and our general ed or regular ed teachers are handling behaviors. So that's been great because we've all learned over the last 3 years more about each other and how we can effectively teach all of our students. Another thing that we had talked to Colleen at the end of last school year that we wanted to meet more as an entire team. So she's given us the opportunity to meet with our paraprofessionals, our 4K assistants, and our OT and our speech path and all of the teachers that work in 4K, and we're able to weekly talk about strategies and best practices and really figure out what we need to do to meet the current needs of our students. What we've learned about inclusion is that it's always ongoing. It's changing daily. What you think you have in place today could look different 3 days from now or 3 months from now. And our students, there they are, looking beautiful. They are having fun. They're doing exactly what we want them to do in a 4K environment. And what we're seeing from them is that they're advocating for one another. They're learning. They're including each other in activities that we wouldn't have seen if we had self-contained classrooms. So when we look at the pictures, we're doing all of the things that we want all of our children to do. We're working on social skills. We're working on cooperative play. We're working on learning. We have students patterning at a light table, playing instruments. And really, oops, it went away. Well, that's okay. So they're doing all of the things that we want and the problem solving that they're displaying, and they're learning just so much, and they're sharing that with others. And then the last example I just wanted to give about how we know that inclusion is working so effectively is that because our playground equipment can be a bit slippery, we have kids playing on the wood chips and on the blacktop in the winter. And we had students playing Duck, Duck, Goose. So they still play that today, and they were excited and they were playing. And then a couple days later, one of the students that I support came up to me and said, Duck, Duck, Goose. And I said, oh, you want to play Duck, Duck, Goose with your friends? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, you have to ask them. So he went over to probably 10 different children in both 4K classrooms, and he said, Duck, Duck, Goose. And they knew that meant he wanted to play. And they all sat down on the blacktop, and they played Duck, Duck, Goose. And that's what we want from kids. We want everyone to feel part of the group, and we want that community to start at 4K and continue through high school. So I think that's the exciting part. Another thing that we did as a group, we decided that it would be important to see what parents thought, because we know how we feel. We know that we see what's happening and we've seen the positive effects, but we wanted to find out kind of what our parents were thinking. So we sent a survey a couple weeks ago, and we asked them what the impact of their child being in an inclusive classroom was. So we're just going to share a couple, and we all have some to share. So the first one is that thank you for having an inclusive classroom. I think it is important for all kids to learn together. She loves school and all her new friends. I believe in inclusion for all students, children. So much learning and growing happens in these environments by all students. Every day I pick up my child, I am grateful for the time, patience, and love all these kids receive. And then the last one that we shared is that I think it's great that my child can sit beside his typically developing peers and participate in the same lessons. I also like that his peers are exposed to him and other special needs children so that they begin to understand that some children learn differently than others. I expect that many of these children will share a classroom with my child for years to come, so I appreciate all of the effort that goes into fostering early friendships, and community acceptance. So really, when we heard the positive response from parents, that just confirmed what we were doing, and we want to continue that going forward.
Okay, so that was Denise sharing us what happens in 4K. And so Amy, Aaron, and I are now going to talk about our third grade and fourth grade experience, since this was our first year doing a co-serving model together.
So I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm going to share a little anecdote. I was actually on a jog. I use that word very liberally, and I just propel my body forward and see what happens. But I was on a jog thinking about what we were going to talk about tonight, and it kind of came to me that our service models are a lot like running, and here's what I mean by that. So we all know that running is supposed to be good for us, right? It's supposed to have a positive impact. But we know that sometimes because of bad arches or, the wrong shoes, that stress fractures result, right? So stress fractures aren't an entirely broken bone, but they're little cracks that ultimately result in destabilization and sometimes injury. So it's kind of a bummer, right? Something that's supposed to be very positive for you, created with the best of intentions, doesn't work out the way you thought it would. So consider it a metaphor for a system like special education. And the reason we're talking about it is because we want to kind of talk to you about some of the challenges so we can really celebrate what's going on. Special education was and is designed to impact our students in a positive way. So whether it's implementing interventions or providing additional support or instruction, you name it. They've been created with the best of intentions, but pulling students out of their classrooms to deliver specially designed instruction, it's just not a fair trade. And it sometimes resulted in stress fractures, if you will, destabilization, and ultimately fewer of our students are able to finish the race. The really good news is that, just like a stress fracture, our system is not completely broken. And the great news is over the past year, we've been able to do something really beautiful, and a lot of our students are winning the race. Kimmy and Amy are going to share a few observations that they have comparing how students performed in an inclusive co-teaching environment compared to how they performed when we used previous models. Oh yeah, you need that.
Hello. We're going to start talking with the difference that we've seen. We've talked a lot. Aaron and I, being in the same classroom, have noticed a great deal of difference from this year compared to last year, with kids getting pulled out and kids staying in the classroom now. No pull-out goes on in our classroom or in the fourth grade classroom at this point. We noticed that last year there was a lot of frustration for teachers as well as for the students. When they're getting pulled out, at some point they're missing something. They're missing either the lesson or they're missing the time to work. They're missing time to interact with their peers. They're missing hearing how their other peers think, seeing how their other peers work. And when they come back into the classroom, the teachers have to stop what they're doing, supporting other students, to try to get those students caught up to what they had just missed in the classroom, which is frustrating. And you're trying to, in a 5 to 10 minute time block, make up for possibly 30 minutes that they missed being in the classroom. And this year, since they are not getting pulled out, we don't see that level of frustration anymore. The kids are excited. They're excited to be part of the group work. If Mrs. C is what we call her, Mrs. C or I walk up to a child and ask to see them, they are sometimes saying, "No, I want to do the work." And we're like, "We just need to talk to you for a brief minute and you can get back in," because they're so used to the pullout that they don't want to miss anything anymore. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing to see this year.
I think my example leads right into that, where we have a student in our classroom last year was pulled out for every single subject. And so his day was so disjointed. And so he would be coming back in the middle of whatever their class was doing. And so now this year, with our model of inclusion, he's with us full time. He doesn't leave the classroom. And at first, the school year was a big shock for him. I think some of these kiddos were getting so used to being pulled all the time that they weren't actually engaged in what was happening within the classroom. And so their expectations of getting any schoolwork done didn't matter to them. And so now, being in the classroom full time, this particular child, his expectations and mindset had to change. We have high expectations for him, and he had to do the work because typically he was used to just waiting for somebody to come get him out of the classroom all day. I guess we can throw some data at you. We always love our data, right? Behaviorally, so we've talked about academics. Another kiddo in our classroom, we call it downtime, as in he's not engaged in any academics happening within the room. He could still be present in the room, but not mentally present, or he was being taken out of the room due to some behavioral issues. For an 8-week period, we tracked, this was during trimester 2, his down minutes, that we call it, were 1,628. In the past 4 weeks, since we've implemented some strategies, and my co-teacher and I have worked tirelessly together and supported each other with new strategies, helping each other out, he has only been down 315 minutes, which is significantly less than what had been happening in the beginning of our school year.
As Kimmy, yeah, we're almost there, but as Kimmy kind of referenced, sorry, is this thing on? As Kimmy referenced, there's a huge social impact as well. In addition, the co-teaching model has really had a huge impact on students' social emotional competence, and I really think that it can't be overlooked. Some of the outward behaviors, the acting out behaviors that a lot of times result in students missing out on learning opportunities. We used to see those because they worked. If you left the classroom, well, there was only one person, and they're not coming for you. And what we've seen now is that when a student is struggling with something, and we're able to work together and stick with that student to help them use a different strategy that serves the same function but keeps them in the room. And you just can't do that consistently when you're on your own. And so that's something that we've been very, very happy to see. I know Kimmy talked about data. We had a student last year who was leaving the class between 3 to 5 times a day, most days of the week. And this year, all we've had to do is track the number of times that he chooses to use a strategy within the classroom to give himself a break and regulate. And it's been less than 20 for the entire year. He hasn't left once. The other thing I just wanted to say, in previous years, when we're talking about students who are working on teaching them what social interactions are supposed to look like, we expected them to do that in a session and then carry it over in the classroom. Some of the skills that I worked to develop with several students I've worked with for a couple of years, the same skills, it took about 6 months for them to start demonstrating it once we were in the inclusive classroom. And I guess, and it's all because of a shift between discussing something and seeing something, and the amount of opportunities that they get to practice a skill and be successful with it. So, and some, I guess I've seen that this year there's not any lessons or tools or strategies that can replace like the quality or the quantity of authentic trials that kids get in a co-teaching environment. So we have a few pictures to share, and we'll end with some feedback from our parents.
Man.
5278. There we go.
Sure. So what you will notice in the pictures, or may not notice, is all the pictures we have up on the screen are special education with regular education kids, and you may not be able to tell a difference with that. These are strategy groups that Erin and I do on a daily basis. They're very fluid. Some days we stay in whole groups, and some days we pull. We base it off of the kids' needs. We are in constant communication. So as I am teaching a lesson, for example, I'm the lead teacher for math and reading, Erin's the lead teacher for writing. As I'm teaching a math lesson, she'll approach me and tell me which kids she sees are having trouble. She'll pull them in the middle of the lesson, continuing to follow what I'm teaching, but scaffolding it so that they can keep up with us. Is there anything you want to add to that? No. Do you need it? Oh, okay. You can go to the next one.
Ooh, me. The pictures that we chose to actually put up here, we wanted to highlight community building. I know we pull strategy groups and we group kids heterogeneously and we, foster relationships between kids, but we really wanted to highlight that we truly are a family. And I love that Amy said, when you look at these pictures, you can't physically see that somebody has a disability or somebody is different, and that the bond that they've created and things that they're learning from each other by everybody staying within the classroom this year has just, and I'm quoting Erin, she used the word beautiful. And I feel like I say that all the time, like our classroom is just beautiful. Just to see the relationships that they formed and how well they work with each other, no matter the ability. I don't know. I mean, you can see just different groups, the differentiating we do with each other, and the fun we have.
And we just wanted to give you more because we love pictures.
We just wanted to add also a picture about character building. Some of the best days that Amy and I have are when we watch what the kids do when nobody's looking. A lot of these pictures we didn't take. They were sent to us by people who caught the kids in action. If you look at the top left corner, there's a student, I won't say which one, but there's a student in that picture who last year wouldn't engage in recess at all, who would stand next to the teacher the entire time. And now that student is running around with friends and wants nothing to do with me, which is fine. And then the other one that I think is one of Amy and I's favorite pictures is the picture in the center. We have a student who has a routine, and he's going on that teeter-totter every day. And someone actually took this picture of all these kids working together, because he'll go sit on it even if nobody's there. But all of these kids who just take it upon themselves to go over and make sure that he gets what he needs. And we have probably the littlest one in our class, like trying to stabilize the teeter-totter, which we thought was pretty great. So those are some things we wanted to share with you. And we also had some positive parent feedback. Yeah, we could. Thanks, Denise.
What did the kids call it? The wheel of...
The spinning wheel. Yeah. No, you're good. So one parent said, I have no suggestions. My son seems to be unaffected, which to me means he has been positively affected by the inclusive environment previous generations haven't embraced or thought to create. I had the opportunity to chaperone a field trip this January and was so heartened to see the support and camaraderie the children displayed toward each other.
Another parent said it gives him the opportunity to interact with all types of kids, not just ones that have similar capabilities of his own. He also has been able to experience that everyone brings their own gifts and struggles to the classroom. My only feedback is that Highland View should continue to have inclusive classrooms. I have only been in the classroom a few times, and I can see that almost every student has some type of adaptation to help make the learning process easier. They showcase that during the learning process.
Another parent said, my child's been positively impacted by being in an inclusive classroom because he's been interacting better at school this year. He loves and enjoys school. He really loves the staff. The level of professionalism and caring for the students in the school and staff is unbelievable. This is the first school I have seen this in thus far.
And then our last one is, I've noticed a change in my child for the best. My child is getting extra attention in the area she struggles in, but more importantly, she sees that all children have worth, even with differences. Having an inclusive classroom is exactly what my kids need and what I want for them. She is more aware and thoughtful of kids with differences. She's excited to go to school and be with her friends of all kinds, and her teachers have told me on numerous occasions how kind she is to everyone. If there's an opportunity for an inclusive classroom in 1st or 4th next year, I want my daughters to be a part of them.
4th grade is short and sweet. We just have a couple. He has become more confident and able to ask for help without fear. He's more social and excited. He has help when he needs it, always available. Keep the children involved with special needs children, as it helps to deter bullying and learn from each other, as well to be better adults later. I think it's beneficial for kids to learn early that not everyone is the same.
So then, just hearing what our teachers have had to say about co-teaching, I do have some hard data to share as well. When you look at our STAR scores, both in reading and math, the table on the left shows our data from last year, fall compared to winter. And if you look at like the red and the yellow, there really isn't too significant of a difference. But the table on the right shows our STAR assessment from fall of this year to winter of this year. And you see quite a change between students that were in the red, not meeting grade level proficiency, and how that's changed just in a few months. So I chose to do, this is our full school data, and I'll answer that. Oh, that was reading, I'm sorry. And then math is very similar as well. I chose to show you the whole school data because what's happening in our co-serving classrooms is really transcending and impacting our entire school community. And so as a school community, we are really looking at our inclusive practices and the amount of times we're pulling students out of class, whether they're in a co-serving classroom or not, and what we can do to work with our specialists to push in to the classroom more and really work with students within their Tier 1 instruction. So moving forward, we know that strong co-serving relationships develop over time. So as we move into next year, we're looking at continuing to explore co-serving partnerships for next year, looking at continuing our co-serving classrooms in 4K and moving into 4th grade and to 5th grade, and possibly having co-serving opportunities in other grade levels. Co-serving doesn't always have to be for a full school day. You can do subjects as well. And so we could do some kind of like spotlight coach serving within specific content areas also. For resources and professional development, we're going to continue our partnership with Peggy Black. She'll be back to work with us again next year. And most importantly, our work is never done. We are always adapting and being flexible in order to make changes based on the needs for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the board?
I want to applaud you on your efforts. It's really important that this inclusion happens at our elementary schools. My question is, so there's one co-teaching classroom in 3rd grade out of how many 3rd grade classes?
There's 3 current 3rd grade classrooms.
Okay. And then similarly with 4th grade, there's 2 co-teaching, and then how many total? 3?
3.
Okay. Is there an issue, because I've been researching this, at the time of day where you have math or reading, is that the same in every grade?
Yes.
And if that's the same, doesn't that limit how our special ed teachers can co-teach?
You guys want to answer that?
If they're only in the one classroom at that one time, how can they be helping the reading and the math in the other classes?
It fluctuates from year to year. So obviously we always communicate with Tracy regarding scheduling. Obviously it is more difficult if students are spread out and the same subject is taught at different times. Often that's why we do sometimes have to resort to group them or do a pull-out model. Sometimes people will work within classrooms and say, well, we're all coming over for this lesson. This particular year, it just doesn't happen to be an issue as the students with identified disabilities are in our classroom and our classroom alone. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's it's a really beautiful thing. It's difficult to sustain, but yeah, it fluctuates from year to year, and it is a challenge. But
sorry, and I want to correct something I probably sent Mrs. Flater in the wrong direction because I nodded, yes, it is the same time. 4th and 5th grade math is currently, but this was an issue actually we all brought up as teachers in our summer PD session when we were all creating our schedules. We did say exactly what you're quoting the research on, that we wanted our subjects to be different from each other so we can have that support from especially like our math specialist and our reading specialist. So currently only right now 4th and 5th grade math is at the same time.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I...
And I think, so as Erin said, our students in 3rd grade who have IEPs are all within Mrs. Stoll and Mrs. Chantel's classroom. Okay. And then within our 2 4th grade classrooms, they are within those 2 4th grade classrooms as well.
I just wanted to comment too, having a son that had special needs going through school, he started in the non-inclusive kind of settings, and then it was in the Elmbrook district. They finally got with, the program like you guys are doing, and he saw himself as more of an individual that was accepted by his peers. And it wasn't until later in his schooling that we found out that he was feeling not at ease with, the pullouts and so forth. He had dyslexia, so he went through a specialized Wilson reading program. That being said, I wanted to compliment all of you because as an educator myself, I do understand how difficult and challenging it can be to plan for your own sake, but also to be working with another person in a co-serving model, as you're calling it. I think, it speaks volumes to you as individuals that you're able to kind of put it out there with the other teacher there, and that you're willing to compromise and do some things that maybe wouldn't necessarily be the way you would do it, but for the best interest of the kids. So I think not only are the kids benefiting, but I think the teachers are benefiting in that setting. And when we met recently at the state capitol with some of our legislators, one of the things we talked about was the early childhood, K4, even K3, interventions and so forth. And I think it's really important that we continue to have that focus here in Greendale, where we catch those kids early. And so I just wanted to compliment all of you. I know this is not easy work. It takes a lot of work, and I think it's great that you're doing this for those students. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening. I think, as you heard earlier, you heard from some of the people that commended Tom and Melanie just about the focus on the students and how we really want to make sure that all students achieve. And I think this is just evidence of that. So thank you for your work in that, and thank you for making sure that we focus on all students, all learning abilities.
And I just want to share my appreciation as well, because this isn't easy to shift the model, and you guys are doing a tremendous job in your first year. Mm-hmm. So as you continue to develop your capacity, I'm really excited to see what this looks like next year and the year after that, right? So thank you for being courageous. Thank you for taking this on and setting up a better environment for all of our students.
I just have one last question. What kind of time do the regular ed and special ed teachers have to meet in the week? What kind of time is given to you? Because that must take a lot of work, obviously, outside of class.
Do you mean in the current year that we're in?
Correct. How often do you meet?
I don't know if we could put a number to that. I mean...
No, what I mean is during any given week, how many hours are the two of you during a prep hour?
We have protected time. I would say, it's been such a blessing. So we have we're usually there before school, so we'll meet before. But in terms of what time the school provides us, we have about 50 minutes where we're able to plan together during the school day, and we'll work through our lunch sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, I'd say that they're generous.
Erin's being very humble. She doesn't like to say what she does. She gives up part of her prep time to help a student that has special needs. So our prep time does get cut a little short, so we usually check in with each other every day. Before school, we have conversations, but our prep time is when we try to do all of our planning. So the first 20 minutes is that quick check-in if our students don't have any other needs at that time. So we'll just do, are we good for today? Everything is set because we have our long-term plan for the week. And then after that 20 minutes, Erin goes to get that child to work with him. So then I continue my prep while she is working with that student. On Thursday is when we have the full hour. So that will be the time that we will do the majority of our planning is on that Thursday.
Great.
But our check-ins, it is daily, it is every morning,
Yeah.
it is after school, it is sometimes even in lessons, like we need to hit on this.
Sure.
But our dedicated time, I would say, would be our Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's a lot of work, so again,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Good question. Anything else? All right, thank you again for coming this evening, and thank you for sharing your story. All right, at this time, we're going to continue on with our agenda and move on to the equity plan update and invite Dr. Smith and Dr. Mutri and a number of our students here who have been working on some of the equity plans. So I invite you to the table up front.
So I'm just going to start as the students get into position. I want to start by, first of all, thanking the community members who spoke up tonight. I certainly appreciate your voice and appreciate the opportunity to work with you, because we know that equity work is not easy work. And it requires shifts in mindsets, it requires shifts in behaviors. And the district is committed to that work, as demonstrated, I think, by what Highland View shared with us related to that co-planning, co-serving model with students. That work is about equity and giving all of our students access and opportunity to learn and develop the skills and content we want students to walk away from Greendale schools having. We also have opportunities for improvement moving forward, as you've also heard from community members who have shared some of their perspectives with you. And it requires certainly partnering with our students who are here tonight and sharing how they've been involved in some of this work. It involves partnering with our parents, giving them opportunities to have a voice, which we'll provide May 7th through that community forum that's going to be hosted by us, but moderated by the Zeidler Center. And we also are working with other key community partners and leaders, because this is more than just Greendale District. It requires us working with key village leaders, key leaders through our different organizations like Lions, like the Village Club, like the library, to get involved so that we can do a better job in terms of welcoming the diversity, increasing diversity we have here in our community. One of our key community members, before I turn it over to the students to share their work with you, one of the key community organizations we are working with is WCS and Community Partners. And I want to invite Jim Bartos up to join me to introduce himself. Jim works with WCS, and he's been working with us in putting together the 3-day workshop next week that is going to take a community builders model to have those really authentic, at times difficult conversations with key community leaders moving forward. So please give a Greendale welcome to Jim.
Thank you for having me. So just very briefly, the people that are going to be coming to this workshop are going to experience a workshop model that goes back to about 1980. It was developed by Dr. M. Scott Peck. He's a world-famous psychiatrist and author. His most famous book is The Road Less Traveled. And the experience that people have in these workshops is designed to have three goals. First, for the participants to be able to overcome personal obstacles and barriers to authentic and effective communication. Secondly, for the people in the group to be able to build and deepen interpersonal relationships based on trust. And third, for the entire group to have this experience of true community, which he described as one of unusual safety and trust and extraordinary respect, so that people can have those courageous conversations and can be vulnerable with each other and share, their deep personal feelings about issues and come to this sense of acceptance of one another through that process. And it's taking place over the 3 days, and in the afternoon of the third day, after they've gone through this experience, the group will do some work together, doing some brainstorming and then prioritizing of some ideas that they come up with for moving forward to make Greendale more inclusive, more welcoming, as Gary put it, to people that don't look like themselves, and to have a very inclusive community. So that's what we're going to be about. And then we'll also, several of us will be here for the community forum, and one of the people that's a facilitator and training of this workshop, who will be part of the facilitation team, is the director of the Zeidler Center for Public Discussion, Dr. Catherine Wilson, and their facilitators will be helping with the community forum on May 7th. So,
thank you. I appreciate that, Jim. Absolutely. So with that said, Mr. Lotus, are you introducing the students, or Dr. Mutri? So also excited to have Dr. Mutri and Dr. Smith here this evening to help us with the student presentation. They've really been working over the course of the last 4 or 5 months to frame the conversation, to focus on solutions. And so tonight, what they're going to be sharing are their 2 key priorities to help us move forward. So with that said, Dr. Mutri, I turn it over to you, and Dr. Smith.
Good evening. Again, Dr. Alicia Mutri, reside in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dr. Ramel Smith, Brown Deer, Wisconsin. As promised, we told you we would come back, kind of give you a report out of some things that we were going to be working on. Just wanted to remind you before we get into the today's presentation that when we described when we were coming, we were like, we're not coming with a magic bullet. We're not coming with a solution, because if we had that magic bullet, we probably would be on an island vacationing somewhere. I'm just being real, right? So what I wanted to remind you, though, is that when you begin to think about science of implementation, for anything to be implemented with fidelity, it literally would take 2 to 4 years for some things to happen. Now, that doesn't mean you wait until 2 to 4 to begin some action steps, but to see it implemented with fidelity, it takes some time. So I mentioned to you that we were coming in and we were working on the first 2 phases. The first 2 phases of science of implementation: exploring and installing. So right now, I want to tell you a little bit about, and I'm going to let Dr. Smith say a few words. We're really going to get into how do we go about exploring. So we did about 7 different focus groups, as we promised. We worked with some student groups, focus groups with students. They're going to tell you about what resulted from that. Parent groups, teacher groups, community groups. Happy to have one of our board members to join our community focus group. From there, we ended up having about 5 sessions where we literally came during the day, worked with students, and again, it's not about us. This is student-led work. We are a neutral party. We don't have to be here, but we choose to be here to try to figure out how do we make Greendale a better place for all students, and especially our students of color, based upon what's happening. So we also had one meeting with our alum group. And so today's presentation will be student-led, and I think you'll be pretty impressed. You guys gave us a pretty fine group of about 30-plus students, and we've got some volunteers today. And Dr. Smith, you wanted to add one thing, I think?
Yeah, I had a presentation planned, but based on today's meeting, I changed it just a little bit. If we're over 25 in this room, we should all be a little embarrassed for the example that we're showing for these children. We had a young lady say she had called the N-word. I saw no empathy from any adult in the room. Dr. Mutri said we came as neutral parties, and that's absolutely the truth. But let me tell you how it became personal for us. I drive her here every time we come to our meetings with these students. They don't even know this, because she was pulled over and unfairly harassed by the police to the point where she's scared to drive here by herself. She has a PhD. She's a law-abiding citizen, but she's afraid to drive here alone. Ma'am, you had a very eloquent speech, and I applaud you for everything that you stated. And the biggest thing that she stated is that sometimes when things are invisible to us, we don't see it. And sometimes we don't see it because we choose not to, or because we don't have to. Derek Bell, the father of critical race theory, said the more things change, the more they stay the same. I was feeling a little hopeless, and I thought of the words of the great James Baldwin. And he said, I can't be hopeless. I have to be an optimist because I'm still living. And the reason why I'm optimistic is because of these 24 young children that we got a chance to work with. When they first started working, it was pretty stereotypical, kind of scattered out.
Scattered out by what?
By race. And as they started to work together, we saw something magical. And what we saw is the beauty of life before tainted by the world. And so what I hope you do, and I think what we did is we missed a great opportunity to allow these young children to speak first where the room was crowded. And I think that's a microcosm of what we have to be able to do, is to hear the voice. Mr. Village President, I applaud you for staying here. But so many other people have left. These children are going to give you some dynamic words, and I hope that they don't fall on deaf ears. But I also hope this serves as a turn for us to know that we have to listen, but not only listen, but listen at the critical time. Ms. Amelie, I'm going to have you come up, and I want you to start this.
Just give our students a round of applause
for everything that they do.
So I'd just like to start off by being abundantly clear that in America, racism is everywhere. And unfortunately, as of now, it's inescapable for the majority of the minority. Something that we cannot change is that ignorance begins in the home. We do live in a community that is predominantly white. That's something that we cannot change. We are afforded a great education, and we are afforded so many great things, but something that we cannot change is that in the home, people are taught to think a certain way about certain people. And although it's terrible, the only thing that we can truly do to change that is that when we are met with ignorance, we teach our children how to respectfully address it, and we teach our children what resources we have to combat the situation. So, I'd like to start off with why we are here as a group. There was a concentrated incident that did break the camel's back, in my opinion. It did, in effect, just bring out every single thing from under the rug. And one of the bigger problems that we found was that there was a lack of a representation, and there was a lack of making sure that all voices matter. There was, when talking about certain incidences, it was very easy for people to just write it off, thinking that it's a one-sided argument, that someone is just being a teenager and they just want to make their voices loud. But it's truly a problem, and it has taken a very terrible thing to happen for us to see it. A solution that we have found is not to, quote-unquote, solve racism, because unfortunately we can't. But a solution that we found was just to try and increase the social awareness that our community does have more depth to it than, no pun intended, being just black and white. We do have resources that we are afforded, and we do have resources that we can create to help make sure that everyone in this community does feel valued and welcome. The next slide. So something that we learned in the beginning. Well, just on personal experience, the people that I surround myself with are a very diverse group of people. I make it my personal goal to make sure that I try and include all people and people of all walks of life that I surround myself with, so that I get a holistic view of the world around me. And something that we learned when we started this focus group was that the majority of the kids a part of this focus group did not think that way. We did divide ourselves. A majority of us, not all of us, we did divide ourselves based on who we relate the most with, and unfortunately, we based that solely on the color of our skin. To combat this, what we did was a series of tests, including the Myers-Briggs test, that just showed us that beyond what we can see with our eyes, we have so many things that can unify us. And I find that super important, because it did show that even when we came to a group that we knew was meant for us to combat this feeling of disunity, we still inadvertently divided ourselves. And I think it's just a great thing to show that Dr. Moutry and Dr. Smith showed us that we do have more to us than what meets the eye. And just something else to just reiterate is that there's a lack of feeling that all people matter at our school. And it is something that you can't just with one snap of your fingers fix, but it is something that we can work towards. And Madison will now read to you guys about the SCOT analysis.
Thank you, Amelie.
Okay. Hello. So with our group, we did many activities, like she was talking about, like the Myers-Briggs test, where we got to learn about one another, but we also talked about why we thought we were here. And through doing the SCOT analysis, which stands for Strengths, Challenges, Opportunities, and Threats, we talked about how that is at our school. From the SCOT analysis, we were able to break it down into 4 other themes, which was survey, communication, belonging, and diversity. From this, we went into different groups and we talked about how those were in our school, what the problems were in those groups, and how we could fix that. From the SCOT analysis, I have some examples of some challenges and opportunities that we do have. One of the challenges that we have at the school is feeling like we have a voice. A lot of people at the school don't feel like they have a voice to be able to speak and say how they feel. And we have a lack of empathy shown through discrimination, prejudice, and racism at this school. But other than that, we do have opportunities. We have many opportunities at this school. For example, we have leadership programs, opportunities for open dialogue with other students, for example, this group. And from that, we made many different choices of why we want to be here today. So from these pictures, if we're not there, okay. In these groups, we broke down into the 4 groups of survey, communication, belonging, and diversity. And here are the pictures of us just in action. We weren't just sitting there being lectured about these, like we actually participated in making these decisions. And so from here, we're going to go into more detail about these 4 groups. And so we're going to start off by talking about survey. So Mason.
Thank you very much.
Hello. As Madison said, we are working on, or we did a survey, and that was our first activity that we sent out. So our job was basically to create a survey with questions focusing on things like diversity and belonging and whether people feel comfortable in our school. And we collaborated with staff to make sure that questions were relevant and good to use. And we used the Likert scale, so that's strongly agree, disagree, neutral, agree, disagree. Everyone probably knows about that. But yeah. So based on this response, you can see that about 73% of the responses were from white students. And out of the 900 kids in our school, 744 kids responded. So that is a very slanted demographic, obviously. So specifically, one of our questions was, do you feel like you belong at our school? And 64.3% feel like they do belong, and 20% were neutral. So belonging is high, but considering the skew that we have in our data here, it is definitely plausible that there are significant numbers that do not feel they belong. And in addition, 10% of people, another question we backtrack. Another question we asked was whether or not you feel racial tension in our school. And 10% of responses agreed to that question. And out of 744 responses, that's 75 kids. So that is a very significant number. And with this kind of data, we hope to make sure we are catering to even what may seem like small percentages of people, because everyone at our school matters, and we want to make sure that everyone is being catered to.
Thank you, Mason.
So I'm short, for one. So my name is Akayla Rush. I'm a freshman here at the high school, and I'm here to talk about the communication aspect of the problems that we've faced here and what we've kind of come up to fix for these situations. So we came up with 5 key points that were involved with the miscommunication that we've been experiencing. So one was safety for everyone. And respect is a huge aspect within that, because respect is something that you want to keep safe, because from respect branches all forms of trust and bonding within person to person, and we really need that. So the students should be respected and feel respected to know that they are treated seriously, and that there is respect between staff and students equally. The point 2 was comfortability, which means putting the students first and letting them know that they are put first. Again, connecting with staff and students, making sure that there is that connection, the trust. 3, knowing how to address issues. This was brought up before by some other people. And this also is very important because some students feel like the issues aren't really addressed the right ways. So that's why we also have supporting personnel like Dr. Smith and Dr. Mutri here to help us through these conflicts. Then 4 was access to resources. We have a lot of resources here at Greendale, and that's a good thing. That's like something that should be applauded for, but no one knows that we have them. So that doesn't help much at all. Like, a lot of people here don't know that we have a social worker, like, that you can go to and talk to for these, like, for personal reasons, you know? Like, people don't know. So, like, these important aspects that people don't really get to see on a day-to-day basis, like, should be presented and advertised to the students. And then the last point was increase awareness school-wide before significant conflicts arise. That's a huge one, because making sure that, because all of the students know that something's going on before all of the adults know, like, that's kind of a given. So this is also learned through student-led groups like this one. Like, a lot more problems were known before the huge conflict that broke the camel's back. There were a lot of them, but kids didn't feel comfortable. That's also going back to the comfortability of communication and why it's so important. So with these student-led groups, there should be open dialogue between the students and the administration or the staff, just to make sure, you know, that, like, they are being heard, because communication is very important. So to end off here, a wise woman once told me, communication is the best thing in the world. And if you think about it, most conflicts arise from miscommunications. And, like, just think about that. Like, how many problems you've had in life, like, they're all miscommunication based. But communication is also a huge part of belonging. And I'm going to leave Emma to talk about belonging.
Thank you, Akela.
Okay. So the next overarching theme that stemmed from our brainstorming and all of the experiences that came together in our group is there's a huge issue in our school of where do I belong and how do I belong in this school? Because when a new freshman comes in without any connectors or any sort of activity or club that they know they're going to join, it's hard for them to be like, oh, yes, that's where I belong, right? So the other side of that is, and something that we really want to address, is not only new incoming freshmen, but also students that are just new to Greendale. And so with this lack of belonging and feelings of exclusion in our school, we wanted to create some type of program that could address it. And so what we came up with was a program called Brothers and like the Brother and Sister program, which would connect upperclassmen and underclassmen and new students with students that have been in the Greendale program, the Greendale School District for a while. And so what I really feel like is important with this program is not only connecting new students and old students, but also connecting students that have been in the school district for a long time and connecting it in the same way that we have been connected in our focus groups by having social events and discussions around issues in our school. We can connect people just like the way Dr. Mutri and Dr. Smith connected us. Yeah. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Annie.
Thank you, Emma.
Right, then I get to finish off and speak to you all about diversity. And that's really what has brought us together in this focus group, is being able to appreciate the diversity of the students that we have here in Greendale. And I know that our demographics don't reflect the largest cultural diversity, but by delving into the similarities that we've had, we've really been able to bridge any gaps that we've had and come up with some solutions that I think I speak for the entire group when I say that we're all very excited for. So in the group labeled diversity, when that came out of analyzing any challenges and threats from our SCOT analysis, we saw that there wasn't although it was a diverse group, we couldn't hear the voices of a lot of students. And we saw that being a large problem because we really wanted to get that input and we really wanted to get that diverse opinion of the student body as a whole outside of the walls of our focus group. So that's what Mason so eloquently was talking about in our survey. So we saw that problem and we were able to work through it and come to a solution where we were able to build off of those results in order to move forward. Additionally, we saw that there wasn't in the beginning a feel of administrative support. And so we reached out and we were speaking to Mr. Lotus, and we presented to a group of administration about our concerns. And the next meeting, it was run by Mr. Lotus, and he was talking to us about our concerns personally. And we went through the results of the survey with him, and we were able to speak candidly at that moment. And I feel like that was a great moment for him and other administrators to step in personally, because we had spoken a lot with Dr. Mutri and Dr. Smith, and it was time to bring it to that level of speaking with our administration and talking about, what can we do with this? We've recognized the problems, we've recognized some challenges, and we've recognized some opportunities, so let's act on those opportunities with that. In addition to that, we saw, as Akela was saying, we have a lot of resources at this school to build some community. And that's what we had really seen in our diversity group. If there's one thing that I could say about the group speaking for diversity, is that we saw that there was a lack of community and that we wanted to build this community with students who didn't feel like they have a voice. We were all given the opportunity, the amazing opportunity, to use our voices and to use our votes, as Dr. Sloto was saying, to be able to change things in our school. But we want to build that community where every student, when they have a issue and when they have a problem, they feel like they have a peer to talk to, and they feel like they have a teacher to talk to, and they feel comfortable speaking up and saying, I'm not okay, and I'm not okay with how things are going. So that's what led us to begin building some resources, as Emma started talking about, with building community through grade levels, and building community to be able to help support students who may feel like they don't have a voice. In addition to that, we'd like to use the resources that we have to build in appreciation for different cultures. We felt as though there were probably some students, there are some students who feel really left out and ignored by the way that our school is sometimes. And so we wanted to really put a focus on how we can appreciate different cultures. As Dr. Smith was saying, we know that this isn't something that's going to solve racism. We know that this isn't something that's going to, in 1 month, be like, oh, all right, great, we all feel included, we all feel great. This is something that we saw that we hope will just build community and will help make people feel like they matter more at our school. And as a group of student leaders, we really hope that we can use this to be able to build a sense of belonging through students who haven't felt that sense of belonging in Greendale schools. So with that, we are planning to implement that next at the end of this year, bringing out a survey of students. Additionally, more specific to that goal, to be able to implement it next year, at the beginning of next year, with some amazing student leaders. And I have the utmost confidence in them as I'm graduating, and I really do feel like this is in great hands, and I really do feel like you're going to be able to see a change in due time. So with that conclusion, we took an issue and we spoke about it, and we were able to find some challenges, and it was a hard conversation. It's been said a lot tonight. This is a difficult conversation to bring up. It's uncomfortable. And we, honestly, if we wanted to have a 40-hour school board meeting, we could tell you all the ideas that we came up with. But we've really whittled it down to be able to build some community and to bridge some of those gaps that we've seen through the research that we've done. So with that, we would be willing to take any questions and comments that any of the board members or administration has. Thank you so much.
First of all, I'd just like to thank all the students, Amelie, Madison, Mason, Akela, Emma, Annie. Thank you for being here tonight. You all spoke very eloquently. I think one of the things that we try to do here in Greendale is to get student voice, and your voices were very loud and clear this evening. We'll have some discussion, but what I think what's been said this evening is we're not going to solve things at tonight's meeting. We're not going to solve things at next month's meeting. This is going to be an ongoing conversation, an ongoing discussion, and I think you have this board's commitment to continue to making the investment of time and energy and resources to continue this conversation. As Dr. Kiltz has always said, we are a richer community, we are a richer school, we are a richer village for having diversity here. So I think that starts off our conversation. Now, how do we all get along? How do we all interact? How do we all have conversations with each other when we may not look the same? We may not have similar interests. There's enough similarities. Just living in Greendale, just going to school at Greendale High School, there's enough similarities that we will find that and continue that conversation. So I just want to thank you again for your you being here tonight and staying a little bit longer. I don't know what time people told you you were going to be presenting at. Hopefully you got some cake and punch along the way. But with that, then, any other comments or questions from any of the rest of the board?
I think the questions of the survey are very good. It's a nice array of questions. The data sort of cries out for disaggregating that by race, though. Have you thought about that?
Sorry. So when we first sent out the survey, we got all of the data back, and we as a group analyzed it. And that was one of the first things that we pointed out, was that we did need to separate it because, like we said, the results are pretty disproportionate. We would like to further send out another one, but again, that survey that we did send out was quite lengthy, so then we'd have to further just take that apart and then find different ways to send that out. But yes, we have considered it.
I think it's also helpful too to know our students' history in terms of were they all Greendale students, you know, Kate, because when you hear the good things that are happening in our elementary schools, does that have an influence on the community? Does it have an influence on the students together, or coming from other districts? I always found a lot of times when I was facing some difficulties in Oak Creek, it was sometimes students coming in from different environments that tolerated things that shouldn't have been tolerated, and then it was infiltrating our schools. And so I think sometimes understanding the historical perspective of where our kids are coming from by the time they get to high school, that explains some of the different experiences they've had. And it helps us to know whether systemically as a district are we, what we're implementing in the elementary schools, are we seeing some of the richness and the good effects out of that? Or is it, we always take the kids where they're at. You have a head on your pillow in Greendale, you are a student. But I think it sometimes helps to understand the historical perspective of where these kids, where is everybody coming from? And it just might give us a clearer picture sometimes too. That's really helpful information. Thanks for your surveys.
We'd just like to say one thing with that, because that's a great point that you put out. We got a chance to do focus groups with parents, with the teachers from both the elementary, middle school, and the high school. We also got a chance to do with community and alumni. One of the things that we found that was consistent throughout the board was a lot of these issues weren't just consistent at the high school level, but they were also prevalent at the grade school level. There were some teachers who had utterly talked about some disdain that they had, and they thought that things should change. I think the group that probably taught us the most was the alumni group. Mm-hmm. And these were students who had went here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and they said this was going on when we were here. And that was very distressing. And so what we said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so what I think what we have to do is to be really honest with ourselves. A lot of it comes with self-introspection between each individual, what we do. And the things that we saw, it wasn't just race, what we recognized. It was a lot of other isms and a lot of others with people who felt uncomfortable from religious values, things of that nature. And so when we talk about the issue, I don't think it's just from people who came here. It seems to be an issue that's kind of been here. The lady at Exclude, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, ma'am. She kind of alluded to the foundation of Greendale and still having some of that residue there. And I think if we're ever going to have change, we have to kind of admit some of those hurtful things that might be present within our culture, and then see, like I said, what we can do as an individual, and then move on to a systemic level to try to change.
I just want to thank all of you again. We all said thanks, but it takes a lot to be a leader, but it takes even more, I think, as a student leader to stand out amongst your peers. You all touched on it, I think, a little bit. When you first came together, you didn't have a full understanding, right, of why you were coming together. And that was, I think, deliberate. Because even the community session that I attended, I recall several of the community members saying, well, why are we here? And I didn't provide any answers either, because I'm also part of the learning and the growth that needs to take place. But I think what struck me the most is this survey coming out from you, the students, as opposed from adults, from the board, from the administration. I think the survey does need to come from within, and because you guys know the questions that you're faced with and the challenges that you're faced with, and we as a board and as a community need to hear that loud and clear. And so it is important, and I hope you understand that I'm very empathetic towards all of the students' voice in this. I do this for 30 years now. I've been in a classroom, but more importantly, this community is my heart and soul. And the students in this community, you sitting right in front of us today, are the future. You're not just the future of Greendale, but you are the future of our society. And so what you take out of here academically is great, but I think what you're going to take out of here and share with the world on a social level, I think, is so much more important. So I just wanted to ask you your feelings about when you first got called in, and how did you feel about that at first? And was it awkward? Was it fun? What was it?
You guys want to go on a line?
Okay,
I'm ready to go on a line. Okay, well then I'll go first because I'm really excited about this. So when we first got called together, it's true. We were all very segregated. It's the truth. There were a few that would sprinkle away from their little groups and talk to others, but it was definitely a new experience for everyone in the room. Mm-hmm. It definitely got all of the attention of everyone when we realized, when they pointed out to us that very day, do you guys realize that you guys are already separated, right? Mm-hmm. We called you here to get you guys together. And like that moment that they said that, like that really moved me, because I've been in a lot of moments and times, not just in Greendale, but all over. I've gone to, 4 or 5 different schools. I've seen it everywhere. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Greendale, like it's a thing. It's happening. Mm-hmm. So when they pointed out that we naturally separated ourselves, that was a turning point for me, realizing that I should probably realize, like, wow, it's not a choice, it's natural, and that's not okay. Because everyone should feel like they should belong together. We live on the same planet, okay? We can't take a rocket ship and split ourselves apart. So you're gonna have to deal with everyone that you have in life. So it's more important to just love the people that you have and people that you surround yourself with, instead of naturally segregating yourselves.
Oh yeah. So I thought it was very eye-opening, definitely, because going into that room, I recognized many of the faces in there, but I had never necessarily taken the time out of my day to like say hello or get to know many of them. And this whole experience has been really great, like personally for me, because it's great to know how many like brilliant minds are at our school in the student body, and like working with these people and just seeing like their passion for this kind of thing, and like everyone in this group wants to see change happen, and it's so inspiring to see it come from the kids, like people like me, you know. Some of it's just amazing to look at and be like, wow, you're my age and you're saying stuff like this, and it's really impressive and it's so cool. So I'm very honored to be a part of this group, and thank you all. So
I kind of agree with both of them, but like going off what they said, like when I first went in, it was kind of surprising to see how many people actually kind of cared in a way, because like in the hallways you walk through and people know about the problems that are happening at the school, but no one speaks up. Like no one acts on them. No one comes to be like, oh, are you okay? Like I heard about, like no one does. And so like going into this group and seeing all these people that actually cared about this and wanted to change was just amazing, because like I never knew that it actually existed here. So yeah.
Just to speak on what Madison was just talking about, I think it puts a great deal of responsibility on high school students to stand up for something that they know is so inherently wrong. It's again that embarrassment inside of us that we feel that if we say something outwardly that we're going to in turn then have that backlashed on us. And I'm very proud to be part of a group of people who, I mean, even some adults don't want to speak up when they see something inherently wrong. And I'm very proud to be part of a group of teenagers who have taken it upon themselves to put themselves out there and to expose themselves enough to not be scared of what might happen if they do raise their voice.
So I came into the group recognizing that I haven't felt personal racial tension towards myself, and I feel like that's an important thing for Greendale kids to feel every once in a while. Like, this isn't centered around problems that are going to hurt me, but it is because it hurts my community, and it hurts my friends, and it hurts my peers. And I just came in really ready to make that change and to really focus in on what are some biases that we see every single day, that it's so easy to just walk into your class and put your head down in your desk and really just, or not your desk, your book, and really just focus in on, you know, high school. But it was just really important to me to have this group, to be able to hear different perspectives and to really be able to work with an amazing group of people to be able to make these changes.
Yeah, I completely agree with what everyone has said so far. And something like exactly what Annie just said, I came into this group kind of feeling like I wanted to hear as many ideas and perspectives as I possibly could, because I knew that I wasn't personally affected by racism in the school, but my friends, and I've seen a lot of people now that have been affected, and I wanted to do as much as I could to take that all in and work with them to make solid action plans, and also work with adults and Dr. Mutri and Dr. Smith to make sure that those action plans continue even after these seniors graduate. So it's been really important for me personally, because I've had to look at the biases that I've had and really take a look at how that affects my day-to-day life. So, yeah.
You see, we're the lucky ones, actually.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, you didn't come in here to give a speech or to lecture. You facilitated what these students were. So thank you, and please know you're always welcome in Greendale schools.
Can I just add one last thing? One of the recommendations from the students also is that, you know, they're a diverse group, but what we've recognized is that this group needs to have even some further voices that are represented at Greendale. So just so you know, as you talk about being a part of the group, they've come up with the idea that we also need to expand it, meaning getting some other voices at the table that are represented in Greendale. So we're happy to, again, we choose to do this work because of the children. This really is why we're here. So any final comments for you?
I mean, we tell them all the time we love them, and I'm so proud of you all, and the world will be better because of you, and I pray that the toxicity of us adults don't affect you, and that you really do effectuate real change in the world. I mean that.
Dr. Mutri, Dr. Smith, on behalf of the students, thank you very much for being part of this work. I know that each and every one of them who you've worked with loves you and appreciates the time that you've put in to help us move forward as well. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank you again.
One final thing I will say to the students who shared tonight is we are committed to moving forward with those two priorities you brought forward, the student mentoring as well as really the cultural experiences, building those in for our students. So know that you've got the full support the administrative team and the school board with those two priorities as well.
Thank you again to everyone. Continuing on the agenda, the next thing, agenda item 10, we'll hear an update on the school resource officer report.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Lotus to come on up, and I think he's going to have Officer Vlad join him as well.
There is very little chance that we'll be as inspiring or as elegant as what you just heard right here. Once again, if there's students are, I know they're heading out now, they've been here a long time, but really appreciate their voice and the report that they gave and watching this whole process unfold over the last couple of months. Jeremy and I are here today to talk about school resource officer update, and I don't know if they're by way of any introduction. I mean, during the board report, you see a lot of information. We're going to take a little bit of time to just let you know that safety and wellness obviously are continue to be a huge priority here in the district, and one of the things that makes this happen is our relationship with the village and with the Greendale Police Department. So the goal of our brief report is to illustrate the benefits of the SRO position, to better define the role, and to speculate what a second position within the village of Greendale could bring to our schools and our students and our community. One of the slide that you see right now is if with the addition of a second SRO officer, one of the things is that these officers, they serve the village of Greendale, and within the village of Greendale is not only the schools in the Greendale schools, but also with Greendale Martin Luther High School and also St. Alphonsus. And so a second position with a school resource officer would would look something like this initially. This is part of the initial collaboration about how the schools might be organized with the officers, but by no way does this mean that they're solely responsible for it. It would just be some initial responsibility. When you think of a school resource officer, it's easy to stereotype what they might do, and some of what they do is stereotypical, and some of it is things that a lot of people don't know about. Some of the things that you would guess that the officers help us with are any school safety processes. Our violence risk assessment process has Jeremy and other officers as needed. Very real participants and at the table with us to bring their unique perspective and the resources that they can give. Obviously, with our ALICE process and with the trainings that we do with our students and our staff in the schools, Jeremy was at the initial training with me and Brian Kafarnas, and also continues to be a very vital part of what we do with school safety. As we start to look at Prepare, which is the part of the school resource kind of school safety three-legged stool of how do we support students during and after a crisis, and how do we, with a special emphasis on mental health and recovering. That is also something that resource officers have been involved with and will continue to be. And then SRP is the newest acronym for the standard reunification process, which we're working on right now, which is if we did have to leave our school in a moment of crisis or just need evacuation for some reason, how do we get students back to their families in a safe manner, in a manner that focuses on not only their physical safety but also their mental health and also their recovery. The school resource officer also works, it's our GAP committee, Greendale Assistance Plan, really looks at the whole child and some of the social emotional learning that you've been hearing about over the last couple of years. But the officers have a very real seat at that table also. There's some community outreach that goes on within the position. For example, with specific student, I tried to think of a couple of examples. So if we're in the middle of a violence risk assessment process, and let's say it's around weapons, one of the important things is that we have the collaboration with Greendale Police Department, who can work with the families and go to the house and conduct a home visit and really talk and really make sure and ascertain that that family is safe and is keeping their students safe, and hence keeps the schools safe. But the officers often are involved with specific student situations. They also provide a lot of supervision for our games and for our dances and all the different things that we like to do with students outside of school too. And so to have the officers there at those events and working not only with the students but also the community. And if you've seen the way that Jeremy works at the games and the other officers work at the games, they are on the whole time, talking with the community and talking with people and remembering a lot of things that have happened over the students' careers at Greendale. Then we also have general things that they help us out with. For example, unfortunately, one of the very real things that we deal with quite a bit now is it's in the report, but it's called the MUT team. It's a mobile urgent treatment team, and really a group of mental health professionals come into the school around some sort of crisis situation, usually with a single student, and to have someone who can coordinate with us the resources of the school and the needs of the school with the needs of the student and also within the needs of the law is very, very helpful to keeping all of our students safe. Also, the position has an instructional piece to it. I included a lot of examples in the report. Jeremy's going to talk about one of those examples today. And then really just the visibility. I think you have to know that the officers here, they come into the school and they're viewed to the adults in the building as a staff member, and hopefully to a number of the students, like it's just another trusted adult that's in my building, and I can go to him or her for resource, and so there really is a visibility factor that we enjoy from that position also. Some anticipated benefits from an additional SRO officer, I think for Jeremy's sake, or anybody that's in that position, is you now have someone with a similar role and with a similar job description to collaborate with and communicate with. And when you have two people, everyone knows here that you can take two different skill sets and then apply not only what's best to the situation, but also each of the different skill sets raises the other. And so there will be an opportunity for more collaboration that way. I mentioned before, we have some very, very real work and a lot of work to do yet on our school safety, and so they will be participants in that. Resources for student wellness and attendance, along with some of the mental health challenges that we're seeing within the schools, comes truancy and comes attendance concerns and other supports that students need. So when they get to school, they can attend to being a student for the most part, and having a partner to do that is also very beneficial. And then also just some more visibility and classroom school integration. I think one of the biggest things when you hear Jeremy talk on the next slide is that we need more collaboration within the classrooms, and so in getting all of our resources, including our school resource officers, into the classroom, into the learning, and find their spots to provide the type of experiences and education we want for a Greendale graduate. And part of that is going to be what processes can we put in place. So if a teacher has just an inkling of an idea of something they could relate and use the SRO for, how do they take that idea? How do they collaborate with them? How do they cultivate it so it turns out to be a meaningful experience for students? And there will be not only more time with two officers involved, but also, like I said, different skill sets and different expertise that can be used. I'm going to let Jeremy talk to you about two of the things that he was able to do. I was going to embarrass him here with a slide of him in a McGruff costume dancing across the gym floor, but I feel like in the sense of time, we'll just get right to the slide here.
So good evening. It's always a great opportunity to get into the classroom with the kids. It affords us to be seen in different lights. or a different light, and to be able to share our experiences and our knowledge with laws, or everybody likes a police story and stuff like that, or they have many questions or comments and stuff like that. So it's definitely something to allow students to start making those inroads or relationships with those kids on a very great level, and it's always a privilege to get into the classroom with the teachers and stuff like that. So some examples, or an example is for the health class for the freshmen. Ms. Carell was, going through some of her curriculum and whatnot and some of her topics, and she reached out to me and asked if I could provide any other insight or information regarding drug prevention and or awareness to her classes. And so, what we did was we worked together, Ms. Carell and I worked together hand in hand on developing, a PowerPoint presentation and information to share that was obviously appropriate and everything like that for the kids, but obviously educating them in what, the dangers are of narcotic use, drug abuse, everything like that. And it doesn't just stop there. I mean, that was one example. There's other different, other classes that I would help participate in presenting to, whether it's driving, whether it's constitutional law, arrest, search, and seizure, things like that, because there are kids that do come down to the office sometime during their day or their break to inquire about law enforcement as a career. So again, it's definitely a huge opportunity to get in speaking with the kids. So basically, again, Ms. Carell and I would go back and forth with the slides or the PowerPoint presentation, and then present it to the kids and the students. And the biggest thing that I really enjoy is having them be able to have a lot of time for questions and answers and stuff like that, because that's where kids kind of start to open up, and that's where you start to get those relationships built and stuff like that, and then you become approachable on a lot of different things, and they start building that trust. So I think those are all integral parts of the SRO position. And again, the bottom line is developing those relationships with our kids.
So what we're going to do is with the fall safety report that you hear each year, we're going to build in our progress and report out the new opportunities that we've been able to come up with to benefit our students and our schools, and ultimately the whole Greendale community. We'll take any questions you have at this point.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I've been pushing for this report for a couple of years. I think it's really important for our community to hear what our SRO does in our schools. There's been a viral video that I'm sure you've seen that shows a police officer with a chest cam talking to a student. Is that done every time? Was that done in this instance for any particular reason?
Well, policy indicates for us that it's going to be more along the lines that if they're a suspect or under arrest or something like that, it's not always required, but it's dictated by our policy.
Mr. Lotus, do you want to speak to that in terms of police officers being involved with the advisory?
Sure.
What
and
Mr. Comiskey is
Yeah, and school investigations in any sort of a discipline situation are just that. They're school investigations. There are some things that can happen that you would guess within a school that would immediately go, reported to police. But I would say 95% of the things that we work with, it goes through the administrative team first, and we make a recommendation. And sometimes we involve the police because there is a ticket because of what we've investigated and found out, or there needs to be some sort of a contact. But other times we want to use the police officers to be part of the learning process too. And so if we can bring a police officer in on an advisement is kind of what we call, I guess, for lack of a better term, but to kind of talk about it's used in just very certain situations, but it's really comes down to, besides the students seeing that this is something that I shouldn't do in school, how would this affect me if I did this when if I was 20 or 22 or 24? And I know that we have to be very cognizant of students and where they're at where they're at as far as, are they able to receive that and listen to that and kind of pick our moments for that. But I think that there's a lot of power in having that in some situations, having that message with students. And I think that one of the failings of that sometimes is that it's a one-time thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with time, administrative time, and SRO time. And I think that's one of the things that, as Jeremy said, as we continue with the relationship building, students will be able to better receive that and benefit from that type of discussion. And we'll continue to look at how we use it and when we use it and why we use it. But I see a lot of benefits from it when done right.
I've also had a lot of parents approaching with concerns and saying, "Oh, geez, I don't know if I'd want my son or daughter to be questioned by the police." So, what is the process for letting parents know when you're questioning a student? What does that look like? Or what scenarios do you not tell the parents beforehand? Tell them what's the process of telling them after? Oh, we did talk to your son or daughter today. It was concerning this. Now, how does that work?
It's a case-by-case basis. Sure. I'm going to be, and it all depends. Obviously, we definitely want to, if it's an urgent, what I mean by that is if there's an urgency to handle, whether it's safety or some kind of mental health crisis, we definitely want to make sure everybody's stabilized or the person is stabilized, the situation is stabilized, and get everything, under control as quickly and safely as possible. At that point, we will, and again, depending on the urgency, we'll contact parents as soon as practical. So I know that sometimes, we try to do it sooner rather. Obviously, we always want to do it sooner rather than later. But sometimes, given circumstances, that's not always the case. But we want to do it as soon as possible. So,
and obviously, you can't always get a hold of the parents.
But I also
You're
want
not
to
going to delay a whole investigation because
correct. It's still got especially if there's urgency and exigent circumstances and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't want it. It does not. There's a lot of different forms to this. I mean, there have been some times when there was a larger situation where administration and the officer collaborated beforehand, talked about some talking points of the learning that we wanted to to impart on the students, called the parents beforehand. And just said, listen, this is the way that we're going to approach this, and this is what you're going to hear, and this is how you could help us out at home, and as far as any sort of a follow up. And then there's been times where it's very, very casual, and the officer might catch the student, in the hallway, as they're heading out of building for that day, and so it's not always. It doesn't look one way, and there's just a lot of different opportunities to do the ultimate. Is what we want to do is to have another voice in the learning process for students.
Thank you.
Given St. Al's and Martin Luther are part of this equation, are we talking about a cost sharing sort of with the second resource officer?
I can speak to that. And part of this is making sure that the officers we have serving in these roles are really seen as community service officers. And in order to do that and fund it under Fund 80, we need to make sure that we're incurring the costs. So when you do it as a cost share with the private schools, all of a sudden you're saying, this isn't necessarily a community officer. We're going to pay for the section that's in our schools, and parochial schools are going to pay for the section that's in their schools. So to make it truly a community officer where we can tap into Fund 80 as a way to fund this, we're not asking them to take on any sort of roles or responsibilities with funding this particular position. So that would be our recommendation, to truly see these two positions as community officers who, regardless of what may be happening, serve all of our schools, parochial and public, in the community, and to see this as a community benefit that we're going to fund through Fund 80.
Any other questions?
Perhaps in all of education there's something there's hardly anything more misunderstood than the role of the SRO, because everyone thinks, I think, out there that you're roaming the halls at all time looking for crime. You're proactive. You're preventing these things, which is what you want to do for any, the best serial killing or mass slaying is the one that never occurs, because it's prevented by SROs and by students who are acting responsibly. Having said that, I want to ask you about altercations, which is not proactive. altercations, physical altercations between students can range from one push to an all-out fight. When do we get police involved? What are teachers told, administrators, and police told about when these get involved at what levels?
I could speak to that. So it's the school's responsibility to bring an officer into the situation if we feel like that, because we are the complainant in those type of situations most often, and so it really, Tom, Dr. Slota, it's really a case-by-case basis. I mean, the one shove could have been preceded by months of work and warning and mediation for students, and or it could be a one-time thing where someone just loses their cool and there's an altercation. So it's hard to say that there's a certain point. I believe from a school point of view, the point usually comes when it gets disorderly and disrupts our learning environment, and so that's kind of, but it's definitely, you could never, there's no if-then type of a situation in this. We try to remain as consistent as possible, make a good team decision, and keep our schools safe.
Any other questions?
In comment and question, I guess. First of all, I'm happy to see that Greendale's moving in this direction. I currently work in a school where we have an SRO just in our school. And as an educator, it makes me feel peace of mind. As you know, they were at one point even talking about educators, carrying guns and all that kind of stuff. And I'm so glad we're moving away from that kind of mentality. And as Tom said, more of a proactive measure. Because I think when we start looking at ways to reach students, it's going to be through those relationships, as you said. The question I had is the role is going to be split between Greendale High School, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, the 3 elementary schools and St. Alphonsus, I believe, and then Martin Luther's and the middle school, or did I get that wrong? I guess the question I have about that is, will there be crossover with these SROs? So it's not specified a certain amount of time in one of these places or any of these places. Can there be crossover with the SROs?
I think we're banking that a real strength of this will be the ability to have that crossover. And I mentioned before the different skill sets, just like two teachers in classrooms next to each other have different experiences, different skill set, different training, different expertise. The 2 officers that are there, although they get a modicum of training to be an officer, but they're specialists within the department also, and so certain positions can be more effective in situations. So I think we're really, and I'm glad that you kind of stumbled over which schools to be together, because I don't think that we're quite sure exactly where the strength of that is and how that whole interplay is going to go. But the main thing is we want to create time for these officers, and I think you said at the beginning of your comments is they're seen as a staff member, and just as that we really appreciate the expertise and the kind of the legal things that Jeremy can bring to us to help us learn about that. I know that Jeremy's gained a lot from being a staff member in the Greendale schools too, coming to our trainings, helping out with our trainings, and has really helped him in his job. And so it's really a win-win situation for both sides.
I know this is a total separate topic, but do we still have the DARE program at all in Greendale, and or has that just been completely eliminated?
No, that was eliminated. I don't remember what year it was, but Officer Bob Windler used to be the DARE officer, and we had the DARE officer, and then we had the school resource officer, and I know there was a lot of dedication and classroom time that Detective Windler did years ago with St. Al's and all of our elementaries and even high school and stuff like that. So,
Greg Daniels at one point was also very involved at the middle school. Okay, I'm good. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? So I think this was being brought to us at this time. As Mr. Lowe said, we'll have an update as part of the safety update. But I think we're looking for some type of consensus so that as we put together the budget for the 2019-2020 school year, that the intention is to have to fund 2 resource officers, which would be new from this year. So just
correct. So the current officer would be funded the way it has been funded, 50% by the district, 50% by the village. The second SRO would be funded 100% through Fund 80.
Any questions? Thank you for coming tonight, Officer Vly, and I think this is a good example of where the village and the schools work well together and share resources. And I think, as one of the students mentioned earlier, there are a lot of resources within the schools. So I would see this SRO as just another resource to say, okay, these types of questions you go to the social worker for. These types of questions you can certainly go to the SRO for. So thank you for being part of that team.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. President Crepetto, my recommendation to you and the board is to table agenda item 11 till the next meeting.
I'm okay with that. Is that?
I'm okay with that.
Melody and Tom, you'll have to come back if you.
I would say
You'll have
this
to
though.
take action on it,
What was really nice. What is really nice is at the end of our time on the board to read at least the benchmarking thing and to see just how well the district is that we are leaving.
Yeah, thank you. So we will bring that back at our next board meeting then. So then we are at the end of our agenda. Any additional comments from visitors this evening? Again, I invite you to the podium, and please state your name and your address for the record. And again,
we are here in Birmingham, Greendale, 5711 Carnation Court. I just want to say thank you for this meeting tonight. A lot of things were addressed, a lot of comments were made, a lot of questions were asked. I wish everybody that was here in the beginning would have stayed for the whole meeting, because some of those questions were answered with the different groups. Everything that was on the agenda went right down the line, from the Highland View all the way. Some of those questions were answered. And I hope that everybody will listen and pass it on. Everybody that's here right now can pass it on to everybody what's happening, because it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment too. It's important for the community to know that these meetings are being live streamed now, and to help get the word out. If you do know people that have left, I think it's important to share that they could find out, watch what took place afterwards.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Jones. I'm the co-chair of Red Racism Milwaukee, and I'm not new to anyone in front of you before the board. And I just wanted to hear exactly what the equity team had to say, and I did listen to what they had to say, and I'm glad that there were students involved and things like that for the process of going forward. And I think that what we heard are beginnings, and I say beginnings, baby steps into the individual piece of racism. What I didn't hear, because that's beyond what can be said by students who are here every day, what I haven't heard the piece about the institutional racism that happens within the schools and the schools' policies and things like that. That I have not heard. I have not heard that through the process, because a lot of times people think that racism strictly has to deal with individual acts, and we know that that is not necessarily true. We do know that, yes, there are individual acts that do happen, but how do you respond? Are all the policies and procedures that you have, in place? When are the police called? All of these kinds of things. Those are the policy ends that talk about the institutional part of racism. And again, to create beloved community, it requires that we face that part of racism. And actually, when we don't have the policies and procedures in place, it allows more of the individual things to happen. And people don't realize that, because it gives a free rein to those types of things to happen. And you have to face those kinds of things head on. I mean, I heard the updates today of just like the work that they were doing. It would have been nice to have known the process and get that engaged, weeks ago. of we're going to be doing an update, but didn't hear any kind of things of these things that were going on behind the scenes, but wasn't told really up until today. And I know that, you know, talking about what's going on with racism and talking about, you know, responses to the video saying that that's not true. We care about people being called the N-word and talking about it being something on social media where people in the community are feeling that there is no transparency here of how you are acting as a board. And it's interesting that I was just looking at one of the things that was on one of the presentations. Character is what we do when no one is watching. Character is what we do when no one is watching. And I'm just trying to figure out exactly, when I'm looking at the board, that transparency is vital to really combating things that need to be done. And it still feels to me that that still hasn't been done. I feel like there's just being pieces of things that folks are still trying to do, trying to control the narrative, and that community voice is still not being heard. Now, I also wanted to, I know that after this meeting there will be a closed session talking about, you know, Dr. Kiltz and, you know, the review regarding that. And I have a question for the board. I would like to ask the question for the board. I know that cannot be answered here, but what type of anti-racism and anti-hate training has Dr. Kiltz had? That's a fair question. That is a fair question to ask of anyone that is in charge of a school district. That's a fair question to even ask yourselves. I have come before that even asking that again. I ask you, what kind of anti-racism training have you had? That means that's more than just talking about equity. Equity talks about trying to let's get along and include everyone. Anti-racism and anti-hate meaning we are not going to do this. We're going to learn, we're going to have policies in place, we're going to be this, and we're going to name and claim that. That's what that means. And I'm asking you as a school district that it's time for you to be able to do that. All children should be your children. And as Shanice said, it's time for you to get it together.
Thank you for your comments. I think what you did hear earlier tonight is some of the professional development that will be taking place next week, as well as a community conversation that is taking place in May. So that is some of the information that is being shared with the community with things that are happening. And the other thing that I will say is our policies are reviewed on a consistent basis. So we do review policies and approve policies probably every other month or so.
Good evening. I won't take up too much of your time. My name is Stephanie Rhodes. I work with a group called Showing Up for Racial Justice. We primarily work with white people's roles in anti-racism work. And I just wanted to call in a couple of things that I heard from this meeting tonight. Several times there were comments about this group, how eloquent they spoke, and that they weren't here to lecture. And I just want to remind this group that all Black voices need to be heard right now, even the really angry ones, even the ones that aren't coming at this from and being described as being nice. We can't be leaning on respectability politics on this topic, because we wouldn't even be having this conversation if people hadn't been very angry and very loud and very persistent. So please don't discount those voices, because they're very upset. Racism is violence, and that is going to come out as violence sometimes. So I just encourage this group to take all voices into consideration. As you heard from their survey, even alumni are very angry about how they were treated here. I'll just read something that Martin Luther King Jr. said once, which is when he called out white moderates who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. So we have to sit in discomfort and we have to sit in tension in order to get to justice. And we see this a lot in schools. I get called in to work with schools on a weekly basis because of just this exact thing. It's not specific to Greendale, it's everywhere. And there's always a focus of comfort, especially white comfort, over the harm and trauma that students are experiencing in their schools. So I encourage you to sit in this discomfort and learn from that. When you're uncomfortable, that's a moment to walk in that door and not close that door. That's where the learning takes place. And I also encourage the school to work on bystander intervention trainings so that students can be allies and they can step in and help support each other when there's bullying or there's harm being committed. My organization will offer that for free. I've spoke to some of the students to your group. If you'd like to come, I can come and teach those skills to your school. And adults need that training as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from visitors this evening? All right, seeing none, we will go into closed session for the purpose of performance evaluation mid-year of the superintendent. So is there a motion? Mew, we're still in the meeting, please. Thank you. And is there a motion to go into closed session?
I know too. It's your
I move we go into closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C in the principal's conference room immediately following the meeting for the purpose of considering the performance evaluation of the superintendent.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to go into closed session, and we will not be returning into open session after the evaluation. Any further discussion? Any call for a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I am yes. Motion carries.